Chapter 528. Ji Tianqing looked at the several dozen invitations and visiting cards on the table and couldn't help but knit his brows. Every invitation and visiting card was extremely luxurious and exquisite. It was clear that only powerful factions and families had the qualifications to use them. He casually flipped through a few invitations and visiting cards and found that the contents were mostly the same. They all had the same goal. Those factions and families in Central State City either sent people to the Cool Breeze courtyard to deliver visiting cards, as well as a valuable meeting gift, or they sent people to deliver invitations, inviting him to attend a banquet. These families and factions all wanted to rope him in and establish a good relationship with him. Ji Tianqing was not interested in this at all. Towards the various large factions and families in Central State City, he didn't have too much of an understanding. He casually flipped through a few visiting cards and invitations, but he found them to be uninteresting. He didn't feel like giving them another look. Seeing his reaction, the Beast King hurriedly reminded, "Tianqing, this old man knows that you are infatuated with martial arts cultivation and don't want to pay attention to these mundane matters. However, this old man must remind you that in this large Central State City, the network of relationships between factions is extremely complicated. As long as it is a family or faction with a bit of background and strength, they will move around and interact with each other, using this to expand their own influence. Tianqing, if you want to truly stand firm in Central State City, you will need a few backers and allies. How about this? This old man will give you a detailed introduction to Central State City, as well as what powerful families and factions there are. Then, you can choose a few that you are willing to make friends with and this old man will help you take care of them." The Beast King was extremely enthusiastic, introducing Ji Tianqing to Central State's large families and factions. However, Ji Tianqing waved his hand, rejecting the Beast King's good intentions. "Senior, I know that you have good intentions and I am very grateful. However, I will not interact with those families and factions, nor will I be recruited by them. Eagles can only soar in the sky if they spread their wings and fly alone. Only sparrows can form flocks. I ask Senior to help me reject those invitations and visiting cards." When the Beast King heard his words, he revealed a faint smile as he nodded and said, "Eagles soar high in the sky, sparrows flock together. These words are truly correct." "Good. Since you've made up your mind, this old man will help you deal with it." The Beast King put away the dozens of invitations and visiting cards and left Clear Jade Garden. Next, he had to send people to reply to the visiting cards and invitations one by one. He also had to send back the gifts sent by the major forces and families. Although this was not a dangerous or difficult task, it was an extremely exhausting task. Of course, Ji Tianqing didn't have to worry about this. In any case, the Beast King was more familiar with the Central State, so it would be easier for him to deal with these matters. After Ji Tianqing sent the Beast King away, Ji Ku and Yen came to his room and chatted with him. More than half a month had passed since Ji Ku transformed into the Golden Raccoon demon race. Now that she had gradually grasped the method to control her demonic power, she usually hid her claws, ears, and tail. Her appearance was no different from that of a human in the past. When Ji Tianqing heard the news, he also felt gratified for her. At this time, Yen frowned and thought for a moment, then asked with some concern, "Senior brother Tianqing, you will enter the Monarch Mansion soon. But junior sister Ji Ku and I have nowhere to go, so we can only stay in Clear Breeze Courtyard. Once you enter the Monarch Mansion, you won't be able to go in and out at will. It will be difficult for us to see you in the future." Ji Ku also had the same thoughts and worries, nodding, "Yes, we have no relatives or friends in the Central State. Apart from Clear Breeze Courtyard, we don't know where else to go." Her eyes were full of reluctance, obviously unwilling to be separated from Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing saw that the two of them were a little sad and depressed, so he smiled and comforted them, "Don't worry, after senior brother enters the Monarch Mansion, I won't leave you alone. I saw in the Monarch Mansion before that each emperor's son has a spirit vein and a dazzling cave dwelling. Each emperor's son has his own family's trusted aides, as well as 1 to 200 guards and maids. They can both guard the cave dwelling and act as their guards when they go out. If you want to enter the Monarch Mansion with me, of course I can take you in. there shouldn't be any problem. However, in the monarch mansion, only the emperor's son and god-tier masters have noble status. Those servants, trusted aides, and guards of the emperor's son have no status. Hearing what he said, Ji Ku's eyes suddenly lit up, revealing a strong sense of expectation, and said excitedly, "Brother Tianqing, you can take us in?" "That's great. As long as we can follow you into the monarch mansion and not be separated from you, I'm willing to even give you maids and maids." Yan also showed a smile and nodded repeatedly. "Senior brother Tianqing, I can be your attendant and guard. As long as you don't leave us, I'm willing to do anything." Ji Ku immediately laughed and joked, "Cuckoo, Yan, one of you is the princess of the Qingyun kingdom, the other is the crown prince of the Hua clan. You want to be my maids and guards? I can't accept this. If others know, I'm afraid they'll say that I'm not strong enough and don't have a good reputation, but I'm arrogant and ostentatious." Ji Ku and Yan were amused, but they didn't care about the false reputation. Ji Ku chuckled and said, "Brother Tianqing, we're just princes and princesses from small places. We're nothing in Zhongzhou City. Among the hundreds of thousands of people watching the battle in the square today, there might be thousands of princes and princesses." Yan also nodded in agreement. The emperor's son is the most honorable person in Zhongzhou, and even in the mysterious heavenly continent. To the cultivators and people of Zhongzhou, it's also a great honor to be the emperor's guard and maid. Although Ji Ku and Yan said these words as if they were joking. However, Ji Tianqing understood that the two of them really didn't care about their status and reputation. They just wanted to follow him into the monarch mansion. Therefore, he nodded and agreed to this matter. "Cuckoo, Yan, the three of us left the sect together and came to Zhongzhou City. The three of us should enjoy blessings and endure hardships together. Since you don't mind, senior brother will of course take you into the monarch mansion. In the future, when you follow me, there's no need to call yourselves guards and maids. We're still brothers of the same sect. As long as I have something, I'll give you a share." Hearing his words, Ji Ku and Yan were even happier. The worries and concerns in their hearts finally dissipated. However, the three of them chatted happily for a while. Yan suddenly remembered something and his mood gradually fell. Ji Tianqing saw that he was hiding something, so he asked, "Yan, what's wrong? Why are you unhappy?" Yan hesitated for a moment before he whispered with a pout, "Senior brother Tianqing, it's been 3 days since you defeated the emperor. No matter how busy senior sister is, she should have come to visit us, right? Did eldest senior sister forget about us after entering the monarch mansion?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and comforted him with a smile. "Yan, senior sister is not that kind of person. The monarch mansion is a holy land of martial arts. The rules there are strict. It's not a place where you can enter and leave as you wish. When we enter the monarch mansion, we have to be careful. We can't be rash and impulsive, so as to avoid being caught by people with ulterior motives. Senior sister must have her difficulties. Don't worry, after we enter the monarch mansion, we'll see her." Yan nodded and responded. Ji Tianqing revealed a smile and reminded him and Ji Ku, "All right, go back and prepare. We'll enter the monarch mansion in 2 days." Chapter 529. In the southern region of Central State, in the sky-connecting mountain range. On the majestic sky-connecting peak was where the human imperial court was located. The 3 palaces, 9 halls, and 18 courtyards formed a majestic and sacred group of palaces. At this time, the emperor and the imperial tutor had just returned to the imperial court from Central State City. Inside the palace of heaven and earth, in the spacious and elegant imperial study, the emperor was wearing a noble and dignified golden dragon robe and a purple gold dragon crown. He was sitting in front of a large table, reading the memorials and letters on the table. He reached out and picked up a dark gold memorial and saw the words Heavenly Stellar Region at the bottom right. "Oh, a memorial from the Heavenly Stellar Region?" The emperor raised his eyebrows as a glint flashed in his eyes. He opened the exquisite and luxurious memorial and carefully read the contents. The memorial was filled with lines of vigorous and powerful words. There were at least tens of thousands of words written on it. Greetings to your majesty. I am the Sky Pillar sect master, Chu Tiansheng. I hereby present a memorial to your majesty to report the details of the Demon King's rebellion. 3 months ago, the Tianjian sect led the 4 great sects were bewitched by the remnants of the demon race and joined forces to besiege the Sky Pillar sect. Our sect's spirit vein array had long been destroyed by the remnants of the demon race, causing the array that sealed the Demon King to lose its power. When our sect was desperately resisting the 4 great sects, the Demon King took the opportunity to break the seal and reappear in the world. He started a massacre in our sect. Our sect and the 4 great sects suffered heavy losses. The Demon King killed thousands of martial artists and was about to condense the Demon King's true body. At the critical moment, our sect's elite disciple, Ji Tianqing, stepped forward bravely and faced the Demon King alone. He swore to protect our sect's disciples. When he read this, the emperor frowned and muttered in confusion, Ji Tianqing? So it's him. The emperor revealed a look of realization and said with a complicated expression, I didn't expect that the young genius who could defeat Yun Shao was actually an elite disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. He nodded slightly. He already had an idea in his heart, so he continued reading. Ji Tianqing possesses the bloodline of the Kenshin. Together with the strength of hundreds of martial artists from our sect, they finally managed to severely injure the demon emperor and force him to flee. When he saw these words, the emperor's pupils immediately shrank, and his face was filled with shock. He stared at the memorial in disbelief. He was silent for a long time with a face full of shock. Only then did he take a deep breath. Even with the exalted status of the human race supreme, when he saw that Ji Tianqing possessed the Kenshin bloodline, his heart was filled with shock and disbelief. He silently put down the memorial, and a look of understanding appeared on his resolute and dignified face. No wonder this child's talent is monstrous, being able to defeat Yun Shao and become the #1 genius of the human race. Kenshin bloodline. He actually has Kenshin blood. The emperor was silent for a moment before he ordered in a dignified tone, Commander Yu, send a message to the imperial tutor. Tell him to come to the study for an audience. I have something important to discuss. The burly general guarding the door of the study immediately bowed and accepted the order. He left the study to pass on the order. It didn't take long for Commander Yu to return. Behind him was the emperor's preceptor, whose hair and beard were completely white. The imperial tutor held the golden horsetail whisk and entered the study. He came to the table and bowed to the emperor. Your Majesty, may I know what instructions you have for me? The emperor did not explain. He solemnly picked up the memorial and handed it to the imperial tutor. The imperial tutor glanced at the words Tianshan region on the memorial and vaguely understood something. He reached out to take the memorial and read it carefully. A moment later, when the imperial tutor saw the words Ji Tianqing and a Kenshin bloodline in the memorial, his body also trembled. His face was filled with deep shock, and his eyes were surging with light. He looked at the emperor in disbelief and asked, the elite disciple that Chu Tianqing mentioned, the one who injured the ancient demon emperor, is the one who defeated the Son of Heaven, Ji Tianqing? This child actually has Kenshin bloodline? The emperor nodded solemnly. That's right. The imperial tutor frowned. This old man had just sent people to investigate Ji Tianqing's background. I didn't expect the results to come so quickly. However, it was 4 months ago that the ancient demon emperor broke the seal and started a massacre in the Sky Pillar sect. Why did Chu Tianqing only submit the memorial now? The emperor raised his eyebrows and explained, this memorial was sent from the Sky Pillar sect a month ago. After all, it takes a month for the messenger to rush from the Sky Pillar sect to the imperial court. Moreover, before the demon emperor broke the seal, Chu Tianqing was ambushed by a demon expert and was seriously injured, so he had to go into seclusion. By the time he came out, the matter had already passed, and he was busy rebuilding the sect, so the time to submit the memorial was a bit late. I see. The imperial tutor finally understood the reason and nodded. He said solemnly, half a year ago, this old man discovered that Kenshin's fated star had lit up again, so I sent people to the 9 southern regions to look for it. However, many guards and secret agents searched bitterly for half a year without any results. I didn't expect that someone had inherited the Kenshin bloodline. No wonder they couldn't find any clues related to the Kenshin. After pausing for a moment, the Imperial Preceptor frowned and said, "This old man has read many legends about the Sword God in the history books. Many of them recorded that the Sword God had an ultimate sword technique. It was to summon a huge sword that could split the heaven and earth from the 9 heavens and use its supreme divine might to kill the enemy. I don't know if the Emperor still remembers that during the battle between Ji Tianqing and the Son of Heaven today, Ji Tianqing used the final move, sword comes, slash. It's very similar to Kenshin's ultimate sword technique." This old man boldly speculates that after Ji Tianqing inherited the Kenshin bloodline, he might have also inherited the Kenshin's ultimate technique. The Emperor recalled the scene at that time and immediately nodded in agreement. That's right. The sword technique that Ji Tianqing used today is indeed very similar to Kenshin's ultimate technique. If this boy has really inherited the Kenshin's ultimate technique, then he can be regarded as the Kenshin's successor. At our level, we all know how miraculous and powerful Kenshin's ultimate technique is. Therefore, Ji Tianqing must be used by our human race. The Imperial Tutor nodded solemnly and stroked his beard. That's right. With Ji Tianqing's unparalleled aptitude and talent, coupled with the cultivation of Kenshin's ultimate technique, he will soon become a world-famous powerhouse. If he can be used by our race, then it will be a blessing for our human race. If by any chance he is roped in by the monster race or the water race and joins their forces, then the consequences will be unimaginable. Speaking up to here, the Imperial Tutor respectfully cupped his hands and bowed to the Emperor. He said in a sincere tone, "Emperor, this old man earnestly requests the Emperor to secretly take action to resolve the enmity between Ji Tianqing and the Son of Heaven. No matter what, we can't let the enmity between them continue to develop, and we can't let Ji Tianqing become our enemy." Chapter 530. The Emperor naturally nodded in agreement with the Imperial Tutor's serious advice. He nodded slightly and said with a serious expression, "The Imperial Tutor is right. Yun Shao was defeated by Ji Tianqing in front of everyone. His reputation has been damaged and his prestige has been greatly reduced. There would definitely be many people criticizing him, and there would even be some rumors and slanders. For so many years, Yun Zhao's life has been smooth and he has not encountered any obstacles. This Emperor is worried that he is young and impetuous and cannot accept this result. He will form a grudge with Ji Tianqing." The Imperial Tutor stroked his beard and said in a serious tone, "Therefore, this matter needs to be secretly resolved by the Emperor." The Emperor already had a plan in mind. He took out a piece of golden paper from the table and began to write a letter to the Emperor. As he wrote the letter, he also read the contents of the letter out loud so that the Imperial Tutor could also know the inside story. "My son, Yun Shao, seeing words is like seeing a face." The battle on the Emperor's stage was the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone knows about it. I have also received the news and results. Yun Shao, ever since you stepped into martial arts cultivation at the age of 4, it has been smooth sailing for the past 20 years, however, there was always someone who was better than him. No matter who it is, they will have to experience failure. Even a peerless powerhouse like Kenshin cannot remain undefeated for his entire life. He will eventually encounter setbacks. Yun Shao, this Emperor hopes that you can face your opponent head-on and use this setback to motivate yourself to work harder. This Emperor also hopes that you can bury the hatchet with Ji Tianqing. Don't lose the big picture for the small things and have conflicts with Ji Tianqing again. You and Ji Tianqing are the top geniuses of our race. In the future, you will become the pillars of our race and fight against the other races. If you can understand, respect, and support each other, and even become good friends, that is what this Emperor wishes for. It is also a blessing for our race." When the Emperor put down his brush, he had also finished reading the contents of the letter. He stamped the golden paper and placed the letter in an envelope. He then used a secret technique to seal it. The Imperial Tutor smiled and nodded. "This is good. When the Emperor sees the letter, he will definitely understand what to do." "Emperor, I will send someone to deliver the letter to the Son of Heaven." As he spoke, the imperial tutor reached out to take the envelope. However, the emperor waved his hand and said, "There's no hurry. This emperor still needs to write another secret letter. Later, send someone to deliver it to the monarch residence." Imperial residence? The imperial tutor was stunned for a moment before he immediately understood. The emperor's letter is for that prince? Not bad. The celestial emperor nodded and said, 3 years ago, this emperor arranged for him to enter the monarch manor and let him secretly monitor the movements of the various princes and make preparations for Cloud Sky to enter the monarch manor. In addition, this emperor also asked him to secretly protect and assist Yun Shao. This person is a hidden chess piece that this emperor placed in the emperor's mansion. If used properly, he will definitely be of great use. The emperor lowered his head as he wrote the letter. He said, Ji Tianqing will enter the monarch manor soon. This emperor wants him to secretly keep an eye on Ji Tianqing and think of a way to get close to Ji Tianqing. From Ji Tianqing, he can find clues related to Kenshin. He also needs to investigate clearly for this emperor whether Ji Tianqing has really inherited Kenshin's secret technique. Compared to Kenshin's bloodline, Kenshin's secret technique is the most mysterious and terrifying thing. After all, once Kenshin's secret technique appears, it will be enough to shake the entire profound sky continent. Hearing the emperor's plan and arrangement, the imperial tutor nodded and said, "That's right. With the emperor's careful arrangement and treatment, it should be foolproof." Then, he took the 2 secret letters from the emperor's hands and bowed to bid farewell to the emperor. He then sent someone to deliver the letters. Very quickly, 7 days passed. In these 7 days, the central state city was bustling with noise and excitement. All kinds of rumors and slanders were spreading everywhere. The battle between Ji Tianqing and Long Yunxiao had already spread throughout the central state city. It had reached the point where even women and children knew about it. Not only were all the powerhouses, families, and martial artists talking about the battle between the two, but they were also talking about it. Even the common people on the streets and alleys were talking about it with great relish. Also, the news had spread out of the central state city and was spreading in all directions at a rapid speed. Ji Tianqing's name finally resounded throughout the central state land. Everyone knew about him, and he had also become one of the influential figures in the central state land. Long Yunxiao, the emperor of the imperial court who received a lot of attention, had his reputation plummeted. He had almost become the laughingstock of all the powerhouses and martial artists. Countless people were criticizing and laughing at him behind his back. All kinds of slanders emerged one after another. Of course, the powerhouses, martial artists, and common people only dared to slander and criticize him behind his back. They would never dare to speak it out in the open. In these 7 days, Long Yunxiao did not show himself. He did not hold a ceremony to select a heavenly concubine, nor did he announce the date of the selection. Everyone in the outside world guessed that Long Yunxiao's injuries were too serious and he was in seclusion to recuperate. This morning, everyone in the cool breeze courtyard gathered in the conference hall. Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Yan had already made preparations. They were going to the monarch mansion today. In the hall, Ji Tianqing led Ji Ku and Yan to salute the Beast King. He said with a sincere expression, "Senior Beast King, the 3 of us are going to the monarch mansion today. Thank you for taking care of us all this time. This junior will remember it in his heart." The Beast King quickly raised his hand, indicating Ji Tianqing to dispense with the formalities. He said with a smile, "Nephew Tianqing, this old man and your master are as close as brothers. What's this little help?" "Tianqing, the monarch mansion is sacred and dignified. There are many rules and geniuses of various races and descendants of wealthy families. The relationship between the forces is very complicated. After you enter the monarch mansion, you must be careful in everything. Don't be impulsive and reckless. You must plan slowly." The Beast King exhorted with concern. Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Ji Ku listened attentively and remembered it in their hearts. After he finished speaking, White Ape stepped into the hall and cupped his hands to report to him, "Master, We're ready and can set off at any time. Hearing White Ape's words, Ji Tianqing raised his brows and asked the Beast King in puzzlement, "Senior, are you leaving too?" The Beast King nodded slightly and said with an amiable expression, "That's right. Now that the three of you are going to enter the monarch mansion to cultivate, this old man is also going to leave for a while and return to Beast King Valley. This time, I'm going back to Beast King Valley to deal with some matters. I don't know when I'll be able to return. This mansion is this old man's property. After this old man leaves, there will be guards guarding it. During this time, if you leave the monarch mansion, you can also stay in the Qingfeng courtyard temporarily." "Thank you, Senior." Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Yen cupped their hands to thank the Beast King again. Then, the three of them bid farewell to the Beast King and left the Qingfeng courtyard, heading straight for the Forest of Divine Monuments in the city. After they left, the Beast King also left the Qingfeng courtyard with White Ape and rushed back to the Tianshan region in the south. Announcing a VIP reader group number 258620646. Brothers with fan points are welcome to join the group. If brothers have any questions, little he will answer them in the group. Chapter 531. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing brought Ji Ku and Yen to the Forest of Divine Steels. The three of them passed through the Forest of Divine Steels and walked along the black stone path to the end. They arrived at a majestic ancient door. Ji Tianqing looked up at the words "Ancient Emperor" above the door and smiled. "Emperor's mansion, here I come," he said in his heart, and took out the purple crystal token from the space ring to open the defensive array that sealed the door. Swoosh! With a flash of colorful light, the colorful barrier opened to both sides and a white light door appeared. Ji Tianqing brought Ji Ku and Yen through the light door and entered the Emperor's mansion. The next moment, the three of them appeared on a vast grassland. Ji Tianqing had been to the Emperor's mansion before and was familiar with the scene in front of him. Ji Ku and Yen, on the other hand, looked around curiously. In this vast world, there were vast grasslands and majestic mountains, as well as vast forests and lakes and rivers. It was full of spiritual qi. Seeing this scene, the two of them revealed excited expressions and exclaimed in surprise. "This is the most mysterious Emperor's mansion on the continent. I didn't expect that I could come here. What a beautiful place, isolated from the rest of the world." Ji Tianqing saw the two of them cheering and said with a smile, "From now on, we will live here. In the future, you will have time and opportunity to enjoy the beautiful scenery in the Emperor's mansion. But now, let's go and report to Divine Master He Yu and settle down first." After that, he turned the Kenshin battle robe into a pair of golden wings and flew into the sky with Ji Ku. They flew toward the majestic mountains in the distance. Yen took off the fire jade bracelet from her wrist and released the wildfire white tiger from it. She rode the white tiger on the grassland and followed Ji Tianqing to the mountains in the distance. Not long after, the three of them entered the vast mountains and encountered a team of experts in black armor. These people were the guards of the imperial residence, responsible for patrolling and guarding the imperial residence. There were 10 guards in this group, and all of them had the strength of the Yuan Dan stage. Moreover, they were riding on spirit birds. After the captain of the guards stopped Ji Tianqing, he asked about his identity and purpose before leading him to the Black Feather Palace. 2 hours later, the guard captain led Ji Tianqing and the other two up the cloud-shrouded Blackfeather Peak and arrived at the gate of Blackfeather Palace. According to the rules of the imperial residence, only Ji Tianqing could meet with Divine Teacher Blackfeather. Ji Ku and Yen had to wait outside. Ji Tianqing entered the spacious and bright hall alone. He saw the black-robed and black-haired Divine Master He Yu meditating in the hall with his eyes closed. He walked to the center of the hall and stood still. He cupped his hands and bowed to Divine Teacher Blackfeather. Crown Prince Ji Tianqing greets Divine Teacher Blackfeather. Divine Teacher Blackfeather opened his eyes and looked at him calmly. He nodded slightly and said, "Ji Tianqing, I have arranged everything for you. As the 56th Crown Prince, you can have a spirit vein and a cave residence. You can also arrange for no more than 200 followers and servants. Divine Teacher Blackfeather's expression was calm as he explained his arrangements. Ji Tianqing then knew that the mountain range 400 miles to the southwest of the Blackfeather Palace had become his territory. It was named the Tianqing Mountain Range. A palace had been built on the mountain range. It was named the Tianqing Palace. It would be the cave residence where he would cultivate in the future. After that, Divine Teacher Blackfeather asked him for the purple crystal token. Divine Teacher Blackfeather added more than 10 formations and restrictions on the token before returning it to him. This purple crystal token had become the real Crown Prince's token. With the Crown Prince's token, Ji Tianqing could enter and leave the Crown Prince's estate. He could activate the various formations and restrictions of the Tianqing Mountain Range and Tianqing Palace. After Divine Teacher Blackfeather finished talking about the cave residence, he said with a stern expression, Ji Tianqing, check your own cave residence in a bit, and then go to the Open Cloud Palace to see the Divine Teacher. You have been assigned to the Open Cloud Divine Teacher. From today onwards, the Open Cloud Divine Teacher will be responsible for teaching you martial cultivation. After he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing bowed respectfully and said, Thank you, Divine Teacher Blackfeather. I understand. Afterwards, he bowed to Divine Teacher Blackfeather and left the Blackfeather Palace. After leaving the Blackfeather Palace, he brought Ji Ku and Yen with him. Under the guidance of the captain of the guards, he hurried to the Tianqing Mountain Range in the southwest. When the three of them arrived at the Tianqing Mountain Range and saw the situation in the mountain range, they were all rather excited. They saw that this spirit vein was located at the southwest edge of the mountain range. It was over 100 kilometers long. The entire mountain range was covered in lush, primitive forests, and there were over a dozen peaks and several valleys. There was a surging river at the foot of the mountain, and there were waterfalls thousands of meters high in the valleys. It was as if the mountain range had been hung with jade ribbons and pearls. It was a very magnificent and beautiful sight. The peaks of the mountains were shrouded in white clouds and thick fog. It seemed like a dream, and its aura was ethereal and otherworldly. On the tallest mountain peak of the mountain range, there was a magnificent palace that occupied an area of 10 miles. This was the Heavenly Palace. The Tianqing Palace sat in a vast sea of clouds. There were even multicolored auspicious clouds lingering above it. Such a magnificent palace seemed like a heavenly palace. The three of them arrived outside the Tianqing Palace and examined the palace up close. Beneath their feet was a path paved with black stone. In front of them was a square that was 1,000 meters in radius. After passing through the square, they would arrive at the gates of the Tianqing Palace. The towering palace gate, which was 100 meters tall, was built with dark green boulders and set up with a powerful defensive formation. On the lintel directly above the palace gate, the words, Tianqing Palace, were carved in flamboyant calligraphy. It exuded a noble and powerful aura. From now on, this is my territory. I finally have my own spirit vein and cave abode. Ji Tianqing looked at the majestic palace with a gratified smile in his eyes. Then, he led Ji Ku and Yen through the square and walked to the palace gate. He opened the palace gate with the emperor's token and led the two of them into the palace. There were 3 courtyards in the Tianqing Palace. There were 3 majestic palaces that covered an area of more than 1,000 meters. Around the 3 main palaces, there were rows upon rows of houses and buildings. There were also 2 beautiful gardens and 2 lakes that were as clear as mirrors. There were thousands of houses of various sizes in the entire Tianqing Palace. Not to mention 100 or 200 attendants and guards. Even if thousands of people lived in it, it would not feel crowded. Ji Ku and Yen walked in the huge Tianqing Palace. Their hearts were filled with shock and amazement. They could not help but cheer in surprise. Brother Tianqing, your cave abode is bigger and more luxurious than the imperial palace of the royal Azure Kingdom. Yen also nodded and praised, Senior Brother Tianqing, even the imperial palace of our fire tribe can't compare to your cave abode. The spiritual energy and resources here are too rich. It's simply the perfect cultivation ground. Chapter 532. Ji, Ku and Yen were extremely excited. They walked around Tianqing Palace, looking around curiously. Ji Tianqing had the two of them stay in Tianqing Palace to familiarize themselves with the palace's environment first. He left Tianqing Palace and followed the captain of the guards to Open Cloud Palace. On the way to Open Cloud Palace, he thought to himself, I wonder what race that Open Cloud Divine Master is from, and what he looks like. How many princes does he have under him? And how does he usually teach the princes how to cultivate? Ji Tianqing was still very unfamiliar with the imperial residence, and did not understand the situation there. Before today, he only knew of Divine Master He Yu. He had not even heard of the other 9 Divine Masters. He was naturally filled with curiosity and doubt about the Open Cloud Divine Master that he had yet to meet. 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing arrived at Open Cloud Peak in the middle of the mountains under the captain's guidance. He landed outside Open Cloud Palace. The guard captain bowed to him and took his leave. Ji Tianqing tidied up his clothes and long hair, and walked towards the gates of Open Cloud Palace alone. There were a few guards standing guard at the gates. After they stopped him, they asked him about his identity and his purpose for coming. He showed his imperial token, and the guards let him pass, allowing him to enter Open Cloud Palace. He passed through the gates of the palace, followed the clean and tidy path, passed through the first courtyard, and entered the majestic palace. As soon as he entered the main hall, he saw 4 noble and handsome princes standing in the main hall. These 4 princes were all extraordinarily handsome youths, but they came from different races. 2 of them were human youths, and the other 2 were foreign youths. The 4 of them stood quietly in the main hall, deep in thought. They seemed to be listening to instructions. Ji Tianqing's gaze passed over the 4 of them, and looked towards the seat of honor in the main hall. He saw a black-robed, dignified middle-aged human man sitting on a dark golden throne inlaid with jade. This person was tall and burly, and his facial features were as angular as a rock. He exuded a resolute and dignified temperament. Especially his deep eyes, they were calm and indifferent, and they contained the extraordinary bearing of an expert that looked down upon all living beings. Ji Tianqing immediately guessed that this black-robed man should be the Clear Cloud Divine Sage. At this moment, the Clear Cloud Divine Master was currently explaining the mysteries of a certain internal cultivation method to the 4 princes, dissecting the essence of the cultivation method. His voice was slightly low and deep, and it contained a sense of solemnity and seriousness, causing those who heard it to feel deep veneration and listen attentively. Ji Tianqing strode into the hall and stood still in the middle. He bowed towards the Clear Cloud Divine Sage and said, Emperor Ji Tianqing, have just entered the imperial residence today. I've come to pay my respects to the Clear Cloud Divine Sage. The Clear Cloud Divine Sage stopped teaching and looked at him calmly. He sized him up a few times. The 4 princes also looked at Ji Tianqing with different expressions as they observed him silently. A while later, the Clear Cloud Divine Sage nodded slightly and said to Ji Tianqing, Ji Tianqing, you've already paid your respects to the Divine Sage He Yu, right? Ji Tianqing replied honestly, yes. The Divine Sage He Yu has already arranged a dwelling for me and assigned me to be under your command. The Clear Cloud Divine Sage nodded and said sternly, correct. From today onwards, you are one of the princes under my tutelage. I will teach you martial cultivation. There are a total of 10 Divine Sages in the imperial residence. As a great Divine Sage, the Divine Sage He Yu has never personally taught the princes. The current 56 princes are taught by me and the 8 Divine Sages. Every Divine Sage has a few princes under them. In the future, if you have any questions or problems with cultivation, you can come to the Clear Cloud Palace to ask me for guidance. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. He said calmly, the princes have just entered the imperial residence. I hope that the Divine Sage Clear Cloud Divine Sage can guide and take care of me in the future. The Divine Sage Clear Cloud Divine Sage nodded and continued, now that you are under my tutelage, you can come to the Clear Cloud Palace at any time. You will not be restricted or obstructed. However, if you have any matters or questions about cultivation and want to see the other Divine Sages, you must first hand over an invitation and wait for the Divine Sage's notice. There are many rules in the imperial residence, and they are very strict. The relevant books have already been prepared in your dwelling. Once you return to your dwelling, you can take some time to read them carefully. You need to understand the rules of the residence as soon as possible. Ji Tianqing clasped his hands and bowed. He said, "As you wish, divine sage." The divine sage Clear Cloud Divine Sage then looked at the four princes in the hall. He said sternly, "From today onwards, Ji Tianqing is the fifth prince under my tutelage. The five of you will also become fellow disciples. Get to know each other first." Hearing this, the four princes all looked at Ji Tianqing, revealing different expressions. The prince who spoke first was actually not one of the two human youths. Instead, he was a 2-meter-tall demon wearing a white fox fur coat. This person had a head of silver hair, and his face was handsome and resolute. His silver eyes exuded a mysterious and unruly aura. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a smile and clasped his hands. He said playfully, "Ji Tianqing, we meet again." When Ji Tianqing saw his appearance clearly, he could not help but reveal a sliver of astonishment. "Kuan-Wu? I didn't think you would also be under the Divine Sage Clear Cloud Divine Sage's tutelage." Kuan-Wu only smiled and nodded. He did not say anything. Immediately afterwards, a human youth wearing luxurious blue robes and holding a green jade fan clasped his hands and greeted Ji Tianqing. "Ji Tianqing, I am Murong Lingfeng. From now on, we will be fellow disciples. If you have any difficulties, feel free to come find me." Hearing this clear voice, Ji Tianqing subconsciously looked at Murong Lingfeng. When he saw Murong Lingfeng's appearance clearly, he was instantly stunned. A strange look flashed through his eyes. This was because this prince named Murong Lingfeng was actually born with a picturesque appearance. His skin was delicate, and his appearance was as beautiful as a peerless beauty. If it were not for his masculine voice, Ji Tianqing would have almost mistaken him for a woman. He had a smile on his face, and there was a hint of tenderness and goodwill in his eyes. Ji Tianqing politely declined the flirtatious look in his eyes. He clasped his hands expressionlessly and said, "Many thanks, Brother Murong." At this moment, another human youth stepped forward and clasped his hands at Ji Tianqing with a smile. "Junior Brother Ji, I am Ling Yichuan. If you have any needs in the future, feel free to tell me." This young man named Ling Yixian had a tall figure and a handsome face. He had the appearance of a distinguished and elegant young master, and he had a rather carefree and forthright air about him. Like Murong Lingfeng, he expressed goodwill to Ji Tianqing. His expression and eyes were very sincere, and would not cause others to be wary. Ji Tianqing also smiled and returned the greeting. He said to him, "Many thanks, Senior Brother Ling." The last prince was from the Water tribe. His skin was dark, and fine scales could be faintly seen on his arms and neck. This person's appearance was ordinary, and his temperament was somewhat cold and gloomy. Chapter 533. Ji Tianqing greeted the four princes, exchanging names and becoming acquainted with them. Although appearance couldn't represent a person's character, good or evil, but Ji Tianqing's first impression of these four people was different, and he already had a sense of propriety and calculation in his heart. After Ji Tianqing greeted the four people and exchanged some pleasantries, the Clear Cloud Divine Sage said, "Today's morning class ends here. You can all withdraw." Ji Tianqing and the four princes bowed and bid farewell to the Clear Cloud Divine Sage, then turned and walked out of Clear Cloud Palace. After leaving Clear Cloud Peak, Ji Tianqing flew into the sky, returning to Tianqing Palace. However, he had just flown 1,000 meters when Murong Lingfeng caught up and blocked his path. "Junior apprentice Brother Ji, please wait." Murong Lingfeng flew in front of him, holding a green jade folding fan and cupping his hands in greeting. "Junior apprentice Brother Ji, that day when you challenged Long Yunxiao on the monarch stage, I was also there to watch. At that time, the situation wasn't suitable, so I didn't congratulate you on the spot. Now, I'll add a few words of congratulations to you, junior apprentice brother." Murong Lingfeng congratulated Ji Tianqing with a smile on his face. His words and actions were quite intimate. Of course, while he acted intimate on the surface, there was a hint of coldness and arrogance hidden in the depths of his eyes. Obviously, he didn't really take Ji Tianqing seriously. Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and cupped his hands in thanks, then turned to leave. Murong Lingfeng saw his cold reaction and couldn't help but frown. He stopped him again and said with a smile, "Junior apprentice brother Ji, I heard that you're not from the middle state, and seem to have come from the 9 regions of the south. Now that you've just entered the monarch manor, you definitely don't have any attendants or maids by your side. Not only does this damage your status as a prince, it's also quite inconvenient for you to do things. It just so happens that I've recently recruited a group of capable guards, as well as a dozen or so young and beautiful maids. If junior apprentice brother Ji doesn't mind, I'll gift those guards and maids to you, so you don't have to worry about these trivial matters." Murong Lingfeng's words were clearly meant to use actions to express goodwill and win over Ji Tianqing. As long as one wasn't an idiot, one would be able to understand his intention of roping them in. However, Ji Tianqing didn't seem to understand what he meant as he calmly cupped his hands and said, "I appreciate brother Murong's good intentions, but I have always liked peace and quiet, so I don't need a maid to serve me. If brother Murong doesn't have any other matters, then I'll take my leave." After saying that, Ji Tianqing ignored Murong Lingfeng's urging to stay, turned around, and flew away. Murong Lingfeng watched as his figure disappeared into the sea of clouds. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and his expression became somewhat gloomy. "Humph. A lowly commoner from one of the 9 territories of the southern continent actually dares to refuse this young master's good intentions? You truly don't know how to appreciate favors." He cursed angrily before turning around and leaving. Murong Lingfeng was born in the Murong family and was the son of the first wife of the Murong family. How noble was his status! In his eyes, the southern continent's 9 territories were poor and desolate lands. Only the central state was a bustling place. People who walked out of the southern continent's 9 territories were lowly commoners. Furthermore, he was ranked 7th in the emperor manor. His strength and status were both very high. Many princes revered him. Who dared to refuse his roping in and getting close to him? Ji Tianqing actually didn't know what was good for him and didn't give him any face. This made him a little angry in his heart. However, Murong Lingfeng calmed down very quickly and suppressed the anger in his heart. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile as he thought to himself, Ji Tianqing defeated Long Yunxiao in front of everyone and even seriously injured Long Yunxiao. In these few days, everyone in the central state city was talking about Long Yunxiao. His reputation was damaged, and the prestige of the Son of Heaven also plummeted. With Long Yunxiao's arrogant personality, he definitely won't be able to swallow this anger. He will definitely fight Ji Tianqing to the death. Sooner or later, he will find Ji Tianqing for revenge. Although Ji Tianqing has shocking talent and strength, he is a lowly commoner without any background or backing. It will be very difficult for him to gain a foothold in the central state. Even if this brat doesn't know how to appreciate favors and temporarily refuses to accept my invitation, I can't give up so easily. I must think of a way to win him over. If I can pull him under my command and use him to deal with Long Yunxiao, that would be the best. If I let him deal with Long Yunxiao, I can complete the Lord's plan and it won't implicate the Murong family. It's the best of both worlds. Furthermore, even if Ji Tianqing knows that I'm using him, he can't do anything about it and can only swallow his anger. How could a lowly commoner without any backing like him dare to make an enemy out of the Murong family? He. Thinking of this, the cold smile on Murong Lingfeng's lips became even wider and his eyes revealed a pleased look. 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing returned to Tianqing Palace. He entered the first courtyard's guest hall and sat down to chat with Ji Ku. At this time, Yan quickly walked into the hall and said to Ji Tianqing, "Senior brother Tianqing, Kun Wu has come to find you. He's waiting outside the door." "What's he doing here?" Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment before saying, "Yan, bring him in." "Okay." Yan responded and quickly turned around to leave the hall. Not long after, Yan brought Kun Wu back to the hall. Kun Wu walked in front of Ji Tianqing with a smile and cupped his hands in greeting. "Junior brother Ji, I trust you've been well since we last met." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands in return and extended his hand to make a please gesture, indicating that he should sit down and talk. Kuan Wu, what business do you have with me? After Kuan Wu sat down, he smiled and said, this monarch has come to find you for two matters. The first is to congratulate you on passing the examination and successfully entering the monarch mansion. Thank you. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, what's the second matter? Kuan Wu turned his head to look at Ji Ku and smiled, in addition to congratulating you, this monarch also wants to see Ji Ku. He looked at Ji Ku with concern. After sizing him up a few times, he asked, Ji Ku, you can already hide the characteristics of our Golden Raccoon clan. It seems that you've already escaped danger and learned how to control your demon power. If it was a month ago, Ji Ku would still have some disgust and resistance towards Kuan Wu. However, now that she had accepted her identity as a member of the Golden Raccoon clan, she could face everything calmly. When she saw Kuan Wu again, she didn't feel as disgusted as before. She nodded to Kuan Wu and said in a calm tone, thank you for the pill you gave me before. Kuan Wu waved his hand and said with a smile, it's nothing. Don't mention it. Ji Ku, this monarch still has a few more pills and a secret cultivation method of the Golden Raccoon clan. If you cultivate according to this secret cultivation method, not only will you be able to quickly refine your demon power, but it will also allow you to quickly increase your strength. It will be faster than cultivating human martial arts. As he spoke, Kuan Wu took out a small white jade bottle and a simple yellow secret manual from his interspatial ring. Ji Ku didn't reach out to take it. He turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing and asked for his opinion with his eyes. Chapter 534. Since Ji Tianqing had agreed, Ji Ku naturally did as she was told. She accepted the medicinal pills and secret manuals from Kun Wu, nodded to Kun Wu, and thanked him. Kuan Wu could see that Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku no longer held any hostility towards him, so he heaved a sigh of relief. He said in a sincere tone, Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, if you encounter any difficulties in the monarch mansion, feel free to come to Kun Wu Palace to look for me. As long as it is within my power, I will definitely help you. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku both smiled and expressed their gratitude to him. Kun Wu didn't say anything else and got up to bow and take his leave. You've just entered the monarch mansion, so you must have a lot of things to do. It's inconvenient for me to disturb you, so I'll take my leave. Ji Tianqing got up to see him off and asked Yan, to send him out of Tianqing Palace. Silence was restored in the hall as Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku sat down to talk. The two chatted for a while and were talking about the layout of Tianqing Palace and the two gardens. At this time, Yan walked into the hall again with a letter in her hand and came to Ji Tianqing. Senior Marshal Brother Tianqing, just as I sent Kun Wu away, a woman came to the outside of the palace and asked to see you. She claimed to be eldest Senior Marshal Sister's maid and specially sent a letter, asking me to personally hand it to you. A letter from eldest Senior Marshal Sister? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows slightly and muttered in confusion. If she wanted to see me, she could have come directly to Tianqing Palace. Why would she send a maid to deliver a letter? As he spoke, he reached out and took the letter from Yan. After opening the envelope, he took out the letter and carefully read it. The letter paper made of hibiscus was tough and delicate, and it contained a faint fragrance. The content of the letter was very little, only a line of beautiful words. Tianqing, I'll be waiting for you by Yunxiu Lake. I have something to discuss with you. Ji Tianqing kept the letter in his spatial ring. Then, he said to Ji Ku and Yan, eldest senior sister is looking for me. You two stay in the palace and don't leave. I'll be back soon. Ji Ku and Yan, both nodded to show that they understood and gave him a few instructions. Ji Tianqing quickly left Tianqing Palace and flew into the sky. He flew towards Yunxiu Lake as fast as lightning. The elegant cloud lake was a clear and bright lake with a radius of 100 miles. It was located in the southeast of the mountains and was hidden by a few mountain ranges. Ji Tianqing didn't quite understand why Yunyao wanted to meet him there. However, he knew that Yunyao had her reasons for doing so. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing flew above Yunxiu Lake and looked down at the situation below. He saw that Yunxiu Lake was surrounded by several towering mountain ranges, and the lake was covered with white clouds and thick fog. Looking down from the sky, it was impossible to see the lake's surface and the lakeside. The environment here was secluded and very few people came here. It was very secluded. Ji Tianqing landed on the lakeside and stood on a green grassland. He keenly looked around for Yunyao's figure. At this moment, a clear and melodious voice suddenly came from behind him. Tianqing, I'm here. Ji Tianqing quickly turned around and saw a beautiful woman in a white dress standing under a willow tree 100 steps behind him. It was Yunyao. Yunyao had been waiting for him under the willow tree. She didn't show up until he came. Ji Tianqing quickly walked to the willow tree and stood in front of Yunyao. He smiled and said, Yao Yao, I'm here. Yunyao nodded and said in a soft tone, Tianqing, long time no see. How are you doing? Were you injured when you fought with Long Yunxiao on the monarch stage that day? Ji Tianqing gently shook his head and said, I'm fine. I've made you worry. Yao Yao, why didn't you go to Tianqing Palace to find me? Instead, you asked to meet me here? Yunyao calmly explained, Tianqing, the relationship between the major forces in the central state is a little complicated. It's hard to explain it clearly in a short time. Cloud Spirit Palace is now in a dangerous situation, and you and I are also at the heart of the struggle. That's why I didn't visit you before. Even if you entered the Monarch Palace, I couldn't go to Tianqing Palace to find you, so as to avoid being discovered by people with ulterior motives. However, there are some things that can't be explained in a letter. I have to tell you in person, so I can only take the risk and ask to meet you here. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said calmly, Yao Yao, you don't have to explain anything. I understand that you have your own considerations and difficulties. It's good that you can understand. Yunyao's eyes revealed a touch of gratification. Then, she said with a serious expression, Tianqing, now that you have entered the Monarch Palace, if you want to establish yourself in the central state city, you have to understand the power structure of the central state. In our human race, the strongest is the imperial court, followed by the 3 great families. These 3 ancient families, other than our Cloud Spirit Palace, there is also the Murong family and the Duanmu family. For many years, the 3 great families have been in a tripartite balance of power, fighting both openly and covertly. However, the 3 great families are independent of each other and have always maintained a balance. However, in recent years, there seems to be a mastermind behind the scenes who is plotting something, actually making the Murong and Duanmu families work together to deal with our Yun family. The Yun family is gradually declining, while the Murong and Duanmu families are becoming more and more arrogant and despotic, becoming more and more unrestrained. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he said with a serious expression, if there really is a mastermind behind the scenes controlling the 2 great families, then the mastermind behind the scenes must be terrifyingly powerful. A power that can make the 2 ancient families bow their heads. I'm afraid, it's related to the imperial court, right? Yunyao looked at him with some surprise and nodded, Tianqing, I didn't expect you to understand so quickly. You guessed right. Mother and I have also analyzed that the mastermind behind the scenes is most likely a descendant of the imperial court. However, the imperial court has many descendants. Other than the emperor, there are also several princes, princesses, and kings. Before we have conclusive evidence, we can't determine who is the mastermind behind the scenes. Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a serious tone, this matter involves the imperial court's descendants. Your Yun family must be careful and not make the slightest mistake. Otherwise, it will be a great disaster. That's right. Yunyao nodded and said with a serious expression, therefore, the Yun family's current situation is worrying. Mother is also very worried about this matter. Tianqing, you have become famous in this battle. After becoming the emperor, you will definitely be targeted by the 2 great families. The Murong family's legitimate son, Murong Lingfeng, and the Duanmu family's Duanmu Yulong, both of them are in the emperor manor. Moreover, they have been in the emperor manor for many years and have already built a deep network of forces. You must be on guard against the people from the 2 great families. Don't have any contact with them. No matter how they behave, no matter how sincere they are to you, they must have other motives and schemes. Hearing Yun Yao's serious warning, Ji Tianqing came to a realization and nodded, so that's how it is. Chapter 535. Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Yun Yao immediately furrowed her brows, and a trace of worry flashed across her eyes. Tianqing, you just entered the monarch mansion today, and Murong Lingfeng already came to find you? Murong Lingfeng is actually so impatient. It seems like he has long been plotting something. Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile and explained, today, I went to meet God Sage Heiyu, and was assigned to God Sage Clear Cloud's tutelage. Coincidentally, Murong Lingfeng is also under God Sage Clear Cloud's tutelage. When he saw me for the first time, he clearly had a good impression of me and wanted to get close to me. At that time, I felt that it was strange. This person and I have never met before, so why would he be so friendly to me for no reason? Now that I think about it, this person most likely wants to use me, right? After speaking, he stared at Yun Yao and said solemnly, Yao Yao, don't worry. I originally had no intention of befriending those aristocratic families and powers. Murong Lingfeng expressed his goodwill to me, but I already rejected him. Since the Murong family and Duanmu family have other plans, it's even more impossible for me to interact with them. Furthermore, I will be careful to guard against them and not give them a chance to take advantage of me. Yin Yao nodded and said, Tianqing, it's good that you understand. Although the monarch mansion is a holy land of martial arts, it's not a peaceful place for cultivation. The relationships and situation in the mansion are also very complicated. There are more than 50 princes in the mansion, and they come from various powers, aristocratic families, and imperial courts of the 3 major races. They all have different camps and goals. Although everyone looks calm on the surface, there are actually turbulent undercurrents. For so many years, they have been fighting openly and covertly. Yin Yao briefly explained the situation in the monarch mansion and reminded Ji Tianqing to be careful. Ji Tianqing listened attentively. After she finished speaking, he looked at her with a gentle gaze and said calmly, Yao Yao, actually, before this, I never thought of entering the monarch mansion, nor did I think of obtaining the fame I have today. All of this originated from what your mother said. She told me that only by entering the monarch mansion and becoming a noble prince would I have the right to interact with you. From that moment on, I decided that no matter what, I had to enter the monarch mansion. I don't care about the glory and prestige of becoming a prince, nor do I care about the reverence and worship of the people. I only care about you. Yin Yao's heartbeat sped up as she was stared at by his gentle yet firm gaze. A hint of gentleness appeared in her eyes. She nodded and stared at Ji Tianqing and said, Tianqing, I understand your intentions. Everything you did, all of this for me. You are not a prince of the aristocratic family's mansion, of course. But, Yun's is heaven, is, because the future, there will be bloodsheds of heaven. There is no way. You. Ed edition. Eds ofs, we, s. Ji Tianqing nodded and said firmly, that's right. The grudges of the 3 aristocratic families, the situation between the different clans, and the fight in the monarch mansion are all earth-shattering. But, even if I am a lone boat, I must ride the wind and break the waves, moving forward courageously. Life is like a game of chess, and I am willing to be a pawn. Although my actions are slow, who has seen me take half a step back? When he said these bold words, an invisible aura of an expert was emitted from his body. He was quite persistent and confident. Yin Yao looked at him with shining eyes. She stretched out her slender fingers to hold his hand and said solemnly, No, Tianqing, you are not a lone boat. I will always be by your side, and we will weather the storm together. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the determination and persistence in each other's eyes. After a long time, Yin Yao let go of Ji Tianqing's hand and said in a low voice, Tianqing, we should go back. Ji Tianqing hesitated for a moment. Seeing that Yin Yao was about to leave, he said, Yao Yao, there is something I want to tell you. Yin Yao asked calmly, what is it? Ji Tianqing said in a low voice. Actually, Long Yunxiao is not a hateful person. He is not a bad person. Although he is cold and arrogant on the surface, I can see that he is sincerely good to you. In order to make you happy, he has made a lot of sacrifices in secret. Maybe you don't need to hate and be hostile to him. I think he is a good friend. Yunyao was startled for a moment, then nodded and said, yes, I know what you said. Long Yunxiao is not a hedonistic son of a rich family, nor is he a vicious and sinister person. He is many times more outstanding than the children of the aristocratic families. Moreover, he has inherited His Majesty the Emperor's demeanor and bearing. He is highly regarded by the Emperor. Speaking up to here, she paused for a moment and looked deeply at Ji Tianqing. Then, she continued in a calm tone, actually, I don't really hate him. I just don't have any romantic feelings for him. Since I am destined not to be with him, I can't be pleasant to him and show him any good feelings. I can't give him hope and fantasy, lest he misunderstand and have some unnecessary misunderstandings, which will delay our time. That's why I deliberately avoided him and treated him coldly for so many years. I just want him to give up completely and cut off his thoughts so that he doesn't have to persist in his obsession. Maybe I am a little cruel, but in my opinion, this is the best way. Being indecisive and giving others hope and fantasy, and then extinguishing it with your own hands. That is the cruelest way. After listening to Yun Yao's words, Ji Tianqing understood her intention. He nodded and said, so that's how it is. I hope Long Yunxiao can let go of his obsession as soon as possible. This should be a kind of release for him. I hope so. Yin Yao nodded and waved goodbye to Ji Tianqing. She took out the jade hairpin from her hair bun and turned it into a pair of wind and fire wings. She flapped them and flew into the sky, leaving graceful Cloud Lake. Ji Tianqing watched her figure disappear into the sea of clouds. Then, he turned and flew back in the direction of Tianqing Palace. Not long after the two of them left graceful Cloud Lake, a tall and sturdy figure appeared in the sea of clouds above the lake. This person was a young man of about 30 years old from the human race. He had a handsome and resolute face. He wore a luxurious green robe and his entire body exuded a noble and dignified aura. He was the 9th prince of the emperor's residence, the first son of the Duanmu family, Duanmu Yulong. Duanmu Yulong frowned and stared in the direction Ji Tianqing left with a sinister sneer on his face. Ha, Ji Tianqing, this brat, indeed has an extraordinary relationship with Yun Yao. When he first barged into the emperor's residence, I could tell that he had something going on with Yun Yao. Fortunately, I was careful and kept an eye on his whereabouts. I didn't expect that on the first day he entered the emperor's residence, he would have a private date with Yun Yao by graceful Cloud Lake. Chapter 536. Since the day Ji Tianqing challenged Long Yunxiao, Duanmu Yulong had been paying attention to Ji Tianqing. In the past few days, he had already sent people to secretly monitor Ji Tianqing's every move. Moreover, when Ji Tianqing entered the monarch mansion, he personally monitored Ji Tianqing. His keen intuition told him that there must be some secret between Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. Now, Duanmu Yulong had indeed found the scene of Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao meeting in secret. He had a premonition that Ji Tianqing's appearance could bring about a favorable turn for their plan. Furthermore, Ji Tianqing might become the breakthrough point for them to deal with the Yun family and Long Yunxiao. Thinking of this, Duanmu Yulong sneered and turned around to enter the boundless sea of clouds, leaving graceful Cloud Lake. He flew across the sky as fast as lightning, heading straight for the exit of the monarch mansion. 2 hours later, he quietly left the monarch mansion. Swish! With a flash of light, Duanmu Yulong appeared outside the majestic gate. He looked around and saw that there was no one in the divine steel forest, so he used a secret technique to quietly change his appearance. Although he only slightly adjusted the outline of his facial features, his appearance had undergone a subtle change, so no one would recognize him at a glance. He put on an ordinary black robe and quickly passed through the divine steel forest, rushing towards a certain place in Central State City. About half an hour later, Duanmu Yulong entered a quiet and cold palace. The palace was dimly lit, and many experts and powerhouses were hiding in the dark. Duanmu Yulong walked all the way to the depths of the palace and arrived outside a dark secret room. Two black-robed guards guarding the door silently stopped him and coldly stared at him. These two guards were actually heavenly origin stage powerhouses. Their auras were ice-cold, and their bodies emitted a faint murderous aura. Duanmu Yulong was very clear about the rules. He quickly took out his identity token and handed it over to the black-robed guards for inspection. After the two guards verified his identity, they opened the array at the door of the secret room and respectfully reported to the inside of the secret room, "Lord, Duanmu Yulong requests an audience." The gloomy secret chamber was silent. After a while, a strange voice that was neither male nor female sounded. "Let him in." The black-robed guard bowed. After leaving the secret room, he made a "please enter" gesture to Duanmu Yulong. Duanmu Yulong's whole body flashed with brilliance and the black robe disappeared. His facial features also changed slightly and quickly returned to normal. When he stepped into the secret room, he had already changed back to his original appearance. He was wearing a long green robe and had a handsome face. Inside the dimly lit secret chamber, there was a dense five-colored spirit chi. A burly man in a golden robe and a dark purple cloak was standing in the secret room with his back to him. The golden-robed man exuded a noble and dignified aura as he quietly stared at the array diagram on the wall, seemingly contemplating something. Duanmu Yulong quickly bowed and respectfully said, "Duanmu Yulong greets Lord." The Lord was still staring at the array diagram on the wall. Without turning his head, he said in a low voice, "No need for formalities." Duanmu Yulong quickly straightened up and respectfully asked, "Lord, I wonder what you ordered me to come here?" The Lord leisurely said, "In recent days, a boy named Ji Tianqing has become the new emperor and is about to enter the monarch mansion. Keep a close eye on this boy. If you can find a good opportunity, get rid of him as soon as possible to avoid future troubles." The Lord's voice was low and gentle, but it contained an unquestionable majesty. After Duanmu Yulong heard it, he immediately showed a surprised expression. He obviously did not expect that the Lord's order was to deal with Ji Tianqing. Why would a great figure with such a noble status like the exalted Lord pay attention to Ji Tianqing? Ji Tianqing is just a despicable person from the 9 southern regions. Even if he has become the emperor, he is still a rootless duckweed. He can't enter the Lord's eyes. Why would the Lord pay attention to him and ask me to find a chance to get rid of him? What is this boy Ji Tianqing's background? Does he have another identity or background? Duanmu Yulong was full of doubts and did not understand the Lord's order. But since the Lord had given the order, he naturally had to follow it. Moreover, since the Lord did not want to disclose the information, he did not dare to ask. "Lord, please rest assured. I will follow your order." Duanmu Yulong cupped his hands and respectfully said, "Lord, I have been secretly watching Ji Tianqing for the past few days. Today, I found a clue. Today is the first day Ji Tianqing entered the monarch mansion. I saw him having a private rendezvous with Yunyao. The two of them seemed to be close." The Lord did not seem to be surprised when he heard the news. His tone was still cold and deep. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao are both disciples of the Sky Pillar sect. The two of them are fellow disciples of the same sect. It is normal for them to be close to each other. Duanmu, the situation in the monarch mansion is complicated. If you want to make a move on Ji Tianqing, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find a good opportunity. If you want to kill someone with a borrowed knife or kill someone without spilling blood, you might as well use your brain and use the relationship between Ji Tianqing and Yunyao to make a fuss. Hearing the Lord's advice and reminder, Duanmu Yulong's eyes flashed and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a sinister sneer. He nodded and quickly cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your advice, Lord. I know what to do. Moreover, I will complete the mission as soon as possible and will not disappoint the Lord." Very good. The Lord nodded slightly, seemingly satisfied with his reaction and attitude. "If there is nothing else to report, you may leave." "As you wish." Duanmu Yulong bowed and said goodbye to the Lord. He then turned around and left the secret room. After Duanmu Yulong left, the secret room returned to darkness and silence. Only then did the Lord slowly turn around. His appearance was the same as usual. He was wearing a half-crystal mask on his face. His appearance and features could not be seen clearly. Only a pair of unique red phoenix eyes could be seen. Humph. Ji Tianqing, I will let you live for a few more days. This lord will soon send you to see the king of hell. Anyone who hinders this lord's footsteps will all die without a burial place. The great lord murmured in a low voice as a cold light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, Duanmu Yulong left the mysterious palace. He changed into a black robe and changed his facial features. Then, he quietly returned to the monarch mansion. On the way back, he was silently calculating in his heart, although our Duanmu family is the same as the Murong family, we work hard for the Lord. However, our Duanmu family will not fall behind the Murong family. We can't let the Murong family snatch the credit. The Lord personally summoned me and entrusted me with such an important task. He must think highly of me and doesn't trust that coquettish Murong Lingfeng. I must get rid of Ji Tianqing as soon as possible and do this beautifully. I must not disappoint the Lord. Chapter 537. 3 days passed by very quickly. Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, and Yan had already adapted and familiarized themselves with the environment of Tianqing Palace. In addition, the three of them had already read the rules of princes, so they had a sufficient understanding of the rules and laws of the monarch estate. During these 3 days, Tianqing Palace was peaceful and quiet. No one came to disturb Ji Tianqing and the others. It wasn't until the morning of the 4th day that Ji Tianqing left Tianqing Palace and rushed to Open Cloud's peak as fast as lightning. Today was the day of the Open Cloud's divine sage's morning lesson. Ever since Ji Tianqing entered the monarch estate, this was the first time he was listening to the teachings of the Open Cloud's divine sage. Naturally, he couldn't be absent or late. When the sun rose, Ji Tianqing arrived at Open Cloud's palace and strode into the main hall. 2 princes had already arrived in the spacious and bright main hall. Ji Tianqing recognized them with a single glance. They were the human race's prince, Ling Yishan, and the icy water race's prince, Yu Zichen. He entered the main hall and stood next to the 2 of them. Yu Zichen glanced at him expressionlessly. He had no intention of greeting him. On the other hand, Ling Yishan smiled slightly at him and nodded slightly in greeting. Ji Tianqing also nodded at Ling Yishan in response. Then, he waited in silence. Before long, Kuan Wu and Murong Lingfeng entered the main hall one after the other. Both of them were conceited and disdained to pay attention to Ling Yishan and Yu Zichen. However, both of them greeted Ji Tianqing, showing their closeness. Ji Tianqing had received Yun Yao's reminder and knew of Murong Lingfeng's identity and objective. Now, when he saw Murong Lingfeng's hypocritical attitude, he felt more and more that this person was hypocritical. He didn't want to pay attention to him. However, Murong Lingfeng didn't care about his cold attitude at all. He didn't feel awkward at all. Half an hour later, the black-robed Open Cloud's divine sage entered the main hall. He walked to the seat of honor and sat down. Ji Tianqing and the 4 princes all bowed, paying their respects to the Clear Cloud Divine Master. The Clear Cloud Divine Sage nodded slightly and said calmly, "Today, I will talk about the peak of martial arts and the legendary realms of martial arts. Being the Emperor's children, in the future, you will be influential figures within the Tianxian land. You will even become the top elite warriors of the land. And the prerequisite to becoming a peak expert is to have foresight, to have a deeper understanding of the martial Dao realms and levels." Ji Tianqing had heard that the divine masters in the imperial residence would not teach specific cultivation methods and secret techniques. The god-tier masters would not interfere with the cultivation of the imperial princes. Only when the princes encountered difficulties in their cultivation and sought guidance from the god masters would the god masters be able to explain and guide them. Usually, the content taught by the divine masters were all different martial arts stories, ancient legends, and secrets of the Tianxian land. After listening to a god-tier master's lecture, the princes would often be able to broaden their horizons and increase their knowledge. This point was different from ordinary sects, and was also the uniqueness of the imperial residence. Only within the imperial residence could one come into contact with more martial arts legends and ancient secrets. Only then could one have the opportunity to climb to the peak of martial arts and reach a higher realm. Ji Tianqing looked at the Clear Cloud Divine Master with a calm expression and listened seriously. The Clear Cloud Divine Master said with a serious expression, "Currently, in the Tian Xian land, those at the Tian Yuan stage are considered elite warriors. Princes who reached the Tian Yuan stage at such a young age are already influential figures. And the refined soul stage above the Tian Yuan stage is a supreme elite warrior in the eyes of all. Just like me and the other divine masters, in the eyes of ordinary people, we are the strongest warriors of the land. But in reality, that is not the case. Ordinary martial artists are short-sighted and have shallow knowledge. Above the refined soul stage, there are the primordial soul stage elite warriors." Primordial soul stage. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing was instantly interested. His heart was filled with curiosity and doubt. The Clear Cloud Divine Master explained in a low voice, "As everyone knows, refined soul stage elites have surpassed the limits of their physical bodies and begun to cultivate their souls. Once they reach the refined soul stage, they can cultivate their souls and strengthen their soul power. They possess all sorts of inconceivable abilities." What are abilities? They are abilities that are inconceivable in the eyes of ordinary people, like those of gods. For example, they can tread on water and fire, fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, control wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, move mountains, control blades and swords to kill from a distance, and so on. Furthermore, if the physical body of a refined soul stage elite is destroyed, as long as their soul does not die, they can reform a physical body and continue to live. Normally speaking, elites who reach the refined soul stage can live for 500 to 1,000 years. In the eyes of ordinary people, they are like gods. Ji Tianqing had heard the burial of heaven talk about the refined soul stage before, but there were only a few sentences. He did not have a thorough understanding of it. Now that he heard the Clear Cloud Divine Master's explanation, he was enlightened and had a clearer understanding of the refined soul stage. At this moment, the Clear Cloud Divine Master continued, "And the primordial soul stage is an even stronger warrior above the refined soul stage." What is the primordial soul stage? The primordial soul stage refers to the primordial soul stage, while the primordial soul stage refers to the mind and soul. Only by fusing one's primordial soul stage with one's mind and soul can one form an extraordinary primordial soul. Primordial soul stage elites are lifeforms of a higher level. They have a lifespan of more than 1,000 years, and they have even more powerful abilities and abilities. For example, the legendary primordial soul stage and primordial soul stage Dharma idol. Elites at this level can leave their physical bodies and roam the world with their primordial soul stage Dharma idol. They can gather the power of heaven and earth from thousands of miles away, call the wind and summon the rain, and change the world. After hearing the Clear Cloud Divine Master's explanation, Ji Tianqing learned about the existence of the primordial soul stage and how powerful it was. Anticipation and yearning grew in his heart. Seeing the prince's fascinated expressions, the Clear Cloud Divine Master continued, "In the current Tianxian continent, there are only 2 or 3 known elites who have reached the primordial soul stage. However, do you think the primordial soul stage is the peak of martial arts? No. Above the primordial soul stage, there are even higher levels, the 9th tribulation stage, the martial sage stage, and the martial god stage. The so-called 9th tribulation stage is the shackles of heaven and earth. The test of the 9 heavens is the greatest test to become a supreme expert of martial arts. If you want to become a godlike elite, you have to withstand the bombardment and baptism of the heavenly tribulation divine lightning 9 times. Only by surviving can you reach the extraordinary martial sage realm. As for the martial god realm, it's a realm close to that of a god." At this moment, Ling Yichuan suddenly asked, "Clear Cloud Divine Master, I heard that 1,000 years ago, the strongest human was called Kenshin. I wonder if that senior Kenshin was the legendary martial god realm? How did an elite like Kenshin die? To be able to defeat and kill the sword god, what realm has his strength reached?" Upon hearing Ling Yichuan's question, the princes stared intently at the clear cloud divine master, waiting for his answer. After all, the princes had all heard of Kenshin's name and knew some of the legends of Kenshin. Chapter 538. When Kenshin's name was mentioned, the clear cloud divine artifact's expression also became solemn. He looked at Ling Yichen with a dignified gaze and said in a heavy voice, Kenshin was the most powerful person of the human race 1,000 years ago, and our residence has already been established for almost 10,000 years, continuing from the ancient times until now. I'm afraid that in the entire continent, only our monarch's residence understands Kenshin's legendary deeds the best. However, Kenshin's life story is our residence's greatest secret, and we cannot reveal too much. I can only tell you with certainty that Kenshin is a powerhouse that has surpassed the martial god realm. The strength of a godlike powerhouse isn't something you or I can imagine. Moreover, powerhouses at that level won't truly die. Ling Yichen immediately frowned, revealing a face full of doubt. He instinctively asked, if I may ask, Clear Cloud Divine Artifact, do you mean that Kenshin hasn't died? Kuan Wu, Murong Lingfeng, and Yu Zichen also looked at the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact expectantly. Clearly, they were very concerned about this question. Only Ji Tianqing remained expressionless, but he vaguely understood the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact's meaning. However, the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact ignored the prince's gazes filled with curiosity and didn't answer Ling Yichen's question. With your current strength, it's still unknown whether or not you can reach the soul-refining realm. Isn't it a bit too ambitious to explore the realm above the martial god realm right now? It's not just you. Even I and the few nascent soul powerhouses on the continent can't reach Kenshin's realm. This is because there are still no supreme martial arts in this world that can allow someone to reach the realm above the martial god realm. Hearing the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact's words, the gazes of Kuan Wu, Ling Yichen, and the others all dimmed, revealing deep disappointment. Ling Yichen pondered for a moment, then asked, Clear Cloud Divine Artifact, could it be that you can't even learn Kenshin's supreme martial arts? The Clear Cloud Divine Artifact frowned and looked at him with a dignified gaze. He thought to himself, why does this Ling Yichen have so many questions today? How strange. However, his expression did not change as he said in a deep voice, Ling Yichuan, ever since Kenshin's fall, no one in this world has obtained Kenshin's ultimate art, nor has anyone cultivated it. I can't answer your question. Thank you, Divine Master. Ling Yichen bowed respectfully and did not ask any more questions. Ji Tianqing remained silent as usual, and his expression did not change much. In reality, after listening to the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact's explanation, waves of shock surged in his heart. He was filled with shock and excitement. Only now did he truly understand how powerful the Kenshin was, and how high their status was. To think that there are martial saints and martial gods in this world. In fact, Kenshin has even reached the realm above martial god. Other than Kenshin, no one else in the world could reach such a level. The fact that I was able to obtain Kenshin's tomb and cultivate Kenshin's secret arts is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and a great fortune. This is even more so the greatest gift and care that the heavens have given me. I will definitely cultivate Kenshin's secret arts even more diligently. I hope that I can be like Kenshin in my lifetime and reach the realm above martial god, exploring the limits of martial arts. Ji Tianqing's heart surged with emotion, and he secretly made up his mind. Afterwards, the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact told everyone about the various abilities of the soul-refining realm and the primordial spirit realm, as well as the legends of many senior powerhouses. Everyone listened attentively, yearning and worship growing in their hearts. At the same time, their horizons were broadened. 2 hours later, the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact finished telling the stories of the powerhouses, and announced the end of today's morning class. Ji Tianqing and the 4 princes bowed to the Clear Cloud Divine Artifact in unison, then turned and left the Clear Cloud Palace. After leaving the Clear Cloud Palace, the princes flew into the sky, returning to their respective abodes. Ji Tianqing had just flown a few kilometers when a call came from the vast sea of clouds behind him. Junior apprentice brother Ji, please wait. Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and turned to look at the sky behind him. After seeing who it was, he couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. This person wasn't Morong Lingfeng, but Ling Yichen, who had given him a pretty good first impression. Ling Yichen flew to his side and stood still, smiling as he said, "Junior apprentice brother Ji, during the morning class just now, I saw that your expression was calm, as if you had a card up your sleeve. It seems that junior apprentice brother Ji is very familiar with the realm of martial arts and the legends of Kenshin. And I've always admired Kenshin greatly, so I'm very interested in his legends. May I ask what junior apprentice brother Ji thinks of what the clear cloud divine artifact said?" Ji Tianqing frowned slightly, looking calmly at Ling Yichen, and said, "Senior apprentice brother Ling, you think too highly of me. I'm not a disciple of a noble family, and I've just entered the imperial residence. Today is also the first time I've heard of such a profound realm of martial arts. As for what the clear cloud divine artifact said, my thoughts are the same as everyone else's. I admire and yearn for it, that's all." Although Ji Tianqing's impression of Ling Yichen wasn't bad, he knew very well that none of the princes who could enter the imperial residence were ordinary people. None of them were easy to deal with. In the complicated imperial residence, it was taboo to talk too much with someone who didn't know each other. After Yun Yao's reminder, he had always been cautious and guarded against the other princes. How could he possibly talk too much with Ling Yichen? And yet, Ling Yichen looked like he was eager to learn. He said somewhat unwillingly, "Junior apprentice brother Ji, we're both disciples of the clear cloud divine artifact, so we're brothers. We'll have to take care of each other in the future. It's normal for us to discuss and communicate with each other after class. You don't have to be so guarded, do you? If junior apprentice brother Ji knows of Kenshin's legends and deeds, why don't you share them with me? We can exchange information." Ji Tianqing looked at him with an indifferent expression, shaking his head and saying, "Even the clear cloud divine artifact can't dispel your doubts, so what can I talk to you about? If senior apprentice brother Ling doesn't have any business, then I'll take my leave." He cupped his hands towards Ling Yichen, turned around, and flew away. Ling Yichen saw his cold attitude that kept people at arm's length, but he wasn't angry or annoyed. He stood in the sky, watching Ji Tianqing's back disappear into the depths of the sea of clouds. He muttered in a low voice, "This guy's very guarded. But there's still plenty of time in the future. Let's see how long you can endure this." Finished speaking, he turned around and flew away with a smile. An hour later, Ji Tianqing returned to Tianqing Palace. He had just stepped through the palace gates when he saw Ji Ku, Qian Yu, and Yan all in the courtyard. Ji Ku was sitting cross-legged in the empty space in front of the palace. He seemed to be cultivating some kind of cultivation technique. Her aura was wild and chaotic, and her complexion constantly changed. Sometimes it was as pale as snow, and sometimes it was as golden as paper. Qian Yu and Yan surrounded her, looking at her with concern. The two of them watched Ji Ku cultivate as they whispered into each other's ears, discussing something. When they reached a critical point, the two of them actually stuck to their own opinions and argued. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing vaguely felt that something was amiss. He hurriedly walked over to inquire about the situation. Chapter 539. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had returned, Yan and Qian Yu immediately stopped arguing. Ji Ku, who was cultivating, also quickly stopped and opened her eyes. With a worried look, she quickly came to Ji Tianqing and said, "Big brother Tianqing, there's a problem with the cultivation art I'm cultivating." Ji Tianqing nodded and quickly comforted her, "Ku, don't worry. Tell me the details slowly." Ji Ku truthfully said, "I'm cultivating the Golden Raccoon clan's secret art that Kunwu gave me. It can indeed improve my strength quickly, but it also strengthens the demon power in my body. The demon power in my body is becoming more and more violent and is gradually getting out of control. I'm afraid that if I continue to cultivate, my demon power will soon go out of control, so I don't dare to cultivate the Golden Raccoon clan's secret art anymore. However, when I cultivate the original human race's cultivation art, the world's spiritual energy I absorb clashed with my demon power, causing it to become even more violent. I've already tried to change several cultivation arts just now. Qian Yu and Yen also helped me think of a way, but they all failed without exception. Big brother Tianqing, what should I do? Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a moment. He then said with a solemn expression, whether it's the Golden Raccoon clan's secret art or the original human race's cultivation art, you can't cultivate them now. It seems that there's a problem with the demon power in your body. I can't do anything about the cultivation problem of the demon race, so I can only find a demon powerhouse to solve it. Ji Ku looked up at him and asked with a puzzled expression, Big brother Tianqing, you mean, to find Kunwu? Yeah, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, let's go. I'll take you to Kunwu Palace to find him. Then, he took Ji Ku and left Tianqing Palace, flying across the sky as fast as lightning. The two of them flew for 200 miles and crossed several mountain ranges before arriving at the Kunwu mountain range where Kunwu was located. Swish! The two of them landed on the mountain peak and walked toward the gate of Kunwu Palace. There were more than a dozen demon clan guards guarding the gate. They only let Ji Tianqing in after asking him about his identity and purpose. Under the guidance of a guard, the two of them passed through the gate and entered Kunwu Palace. The guard led the two of them through the first courtyard and into the guest hall. Please wait here for a moment. Allow me to report to His Highness. The guard bowed respectfully before turning around and leaving the main hall to report the news to Kunwu. Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku sat in the guest hall and waited for a while. Then, they heard footsteps outside the hall. The two of them turned to look at the entrance of the main hall and saw that it was Kunwu. Kunwu quickly walked into the main hall. Before he sat down, he revealed a concerned expression and asked, Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku, did you encounter any trouble when you came to find Benjun? Ji Tianqing didn't bother with pleasantries and went straight to the point. That's right. Ku's cultivation has a problem. She's cultivating the Golden Raccoon clan's secret technique that you gave her. It can indeed increase her strength, but it also makes the demon qi in her body more violent. He explained the situation in a concise manner. After Kunwu heard this, he frowned in worry and looked at Ji Ku with concern. Ji Ku, Benjun needs to check the situation first to know what's going on. Ji Ku nodded and didn't refuse. Thus, Kunwu raised his right hand and put his index and middle fingers together like a sword. He used the demon clan's secret technique and sent a streak of dark silver demon qi into Ji Ku's forehead. He controlled the streak of demon qi and sent it through Ji Ku's meridians to check the situation inside his body. However, the demonic power he used was quickly blocked by the mysterious demonic power in Ji Ku's body. Kunwu used the secret technique again and again to increase the power of the dark silver demon qi. However, he still couldn't resist Ji Ku's mysterious demon qi. 100 breaths passed, but Kunwu didn't make any progress. He also couldn't detect Ji Ku's situation. Helpless, he could only use all his demon qi to rush toward the mysterious demon qi in Ji Ku's body. The two powerful demonic powers collided with each other in Ji Ku's body, and a muffled bang was heard. At that moment, Ji Ku's body trembled. His face turned pale, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Unable to withstand the power of the collision between the two demon qi, he closed his eyes and fell unconscious. Kunwu's expression changed drastically. He quickly retracted his demon qi and looked at Ji Ku anxiously and worriedly. At that moment, a silver crescent mark suddenly appeared on Ji Ku's fair and tender forehead. The crescent mark was like a birthmark, but it emitted a faint silver glow. It looked extremely mysterious and noble. When Kunwu saw the crescent mark, his body trembled. His eyes widened, and a look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. His expression was complicated. Other than shock, there was also a trace of surprise. However, the crescent mark on Ji Ku's forehead only appeared for a breath before it disappeared. Ji Tianqing saw that Ji Ku was injured and unconscious. He was also worried and anxious. He quickly asked, Kunwu, what's going on? Kunwu only came back to his senses when he heard his shout. He quickly waved his hand and said, Ji Tianqing, don't worry too much. Ku is fine. She's just unconscious. Ji Tianqing frowned and looked at him. He asked again, how's the demon qi in Ku's body? Is there a way to solve it? Kunwa nodded solemnly and said in a serious tone, Ji Tianqing, I roughly know what's going on with the demon qi in Ji Ku's body. However, with my strength and methods, I'm still unable to solve the mysterious demon qi for her. If I want to solve her problem completely, I can only bring her back to the demon clan and ask father to save her. Ji Tianqing frowned. Bring her back to the demon clan? Ask the demon emperor to save her? Kunwa saw that he was hesitating, so he persuaded, Ji Tianqing, Ji Ku's current situation isn't too serious. As long as my father helps, he can still save her. However, if we delay any longer, when the demon qi in her body completely breaks the seal, even the deities won't be able to save her. Then, there's really no way to save her. Ji Tianqing pondered silently for a moment. He then said solemnly, Kunwu, I'll remember what you said. When Kuku wakes up, I'll pass on your words to her and let her consider and decide for herself. That's good too. Kunwa nodded and didn't say anything else. After that, Ji Tianqing carried the unconscious Ji Ku and left Kunwa Palace. After he and Ji Ku left, Kunwa was still sitting in the main hall. His eyes were fixed on the sky outside the hall. Kunwa's expression was somewhat complicated. After pondering for a long time, he muttered to himself, Little sister, is it really you? Are you back? No one could answer his question. For the time being, he couldn't confirm the doubts in his heart. Chapter 540. After Ji Tianqing brought Ji Ku back to Tianqing Palace, he placed her in a room and let her sleep peacefully. Xian Yu stayed in the room to take care of her in case anything unexpected happened. Ji Ku slept for half a day and only woke up in the evening. Seeing that she had woken up, Xian Yu hurriedly went to inform Ji Tianqing. Although Ji Tianqing was meditating and cultivating, he kept thinking about Ji Ku's situation. After hearing the news, he hurriedly rushed to Ji Ku's room. Kuku, how are you feeling? Are your injuries serious? Ji Ku had just woken up and her eyes were still a little drowsy and hazy. She rubbed her eyes and gradually woke up. She gently shook her head and said, Big brother Tianqing, don't worry. I'm fine. Ji Tianqing was relieved when he saw that her breathing was stable and that there was no demonic power in her body. He thought for a moment and said, After you fainted, Kuan Wu told me that he can't solve your problem either. If he wants to completely cure you, he can only bring you back to the demon race and ask his father, the demon king, to help. Also, your current situation isn't too serious. As long as the demon king helps, your problem can be completely solved. If this drags on. Ji Tianqing conveyed Kuan Wu's words to Ji Ku word for word. After Ji Ku heard it, she shook her head with a determined expression and said, No. Big brother Tianqing, I don't want to go to the demon race. I'd rather not cultivate the secret techniques of the Golden Raccoon clan and not become a powerful martial artist than leave you. I won't go to the demon race. I want to stay by your side. Sigh. Ji Tianqing sighed and tried to persuade her again. Kuku, even if you go to the demon race, we'll only be separated temporarily. Once your problem is solved, you won't have to worry about the demonic power in your body anymore. When that time comes, you can return to my side and never leave again, okay? Ji Ku pursed her lips tightly. She still shook her head firmly and refused to agree. Ji Tianqing tried to persuade him a few more times, but to no avail. He had to put the matter aside for the time being. All right, then rest well for a few days. Don't cultivate the Golden Raccoon clan's cultivation technique for now. He said a few words to Ji Ku, then got up and left. A few hours passed quickly, and it was already late at night. Under the pitch-black curtain of night, a tall figure stood in the sea of clouds above the Tianqing mountain range. This person was wearing a white fox fur coat. He had long silver hair and a handsome and resolute face. He was Kuan Wu. He used a secret technique to hide his presence and stood quietly in the sea of clouds, looking down at the Tianqing palace that was 1,000 meters away. Ever since he saw the crescent moon mark on Ji Ku's forehead, he had been feeling uneasy and could not calm down. He had a bad premonition in his heart. He felt that Tianqing Palace might not be peaceful, and that there might be some danger. Regardless of whether Ji Ku was his long-lost little sister or not, at least Ji Ku was a member of his clan. He was worried about Ji Ku's safety, so when night fell, he quietly came to the Tianqing mountain range and hid in the sea of clouds, silently looking at Tianqing Palace. As time passed, the curtain of night grew darker, and the cold wind in the sky grew more bitingly cold. At this moment, Kun Wu's hawk-like sharp eyes suddenly saw a flash of cold light under the curtain of night below. He focused his eyes and immediately saw it clearly. It was a vigorous black silhouette, holding a cold and frightening treasured sword in his hand. He was rushing through the forest as fast as lightning towards the heavenly palace. The black figure's presence was cold and powerful. He moved as fast as a flash of light and was silent. He was clearly a heavenly origin expert. Moreover, this person did not rush toward the main entrance of Tianqing Palace, but rushed toward the side of the palace. In a short span of a dozen breaths, he had crossed 1,000 meters and entered the forest on the side of the palace. He wanted to sneak into Tianqing Palace. Seeing this, Kun Wu frowned, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Just as he was about to warn the people in Tianqing Palace, he suddenly realized that another figure had suddenly appeared in the forest on the side of Tianqing Palace. It was also a heavenly origin expert dressed in black and wearing a mask. He was flying in the night sky with a pair of wings formed by his true essence. He waved the sword in his hand and slashed out a 5-colored light blade. Swoosh! The 5-colored sword light formed by his true essence was more than 10 meters long. It cut through the night sky as fast as lightning and slashed into the dark forest. With a muffled bang, the black figure that had sneaked into the forest was forced into the sky by the sword light. The two black figures confronted each other in the night sky above the forest. They did not need to speak and immediately began to fight with their swords. Swoosh! 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 The two silently waved their swords and continued to display their unique sword skills. They began to fight in the night sky. Endless streams of sword light lit up the nearby night sky. The sharp sword chi and the fragments of light that burst out tore apart the dense forest around them, causing dust and wood chips to fly up into the air. However, the two black figures deliberately suppressed their sword skills, as if they did not dare to make too much noise to avoid alerting the people in Tianqing Palace. The two sides fought for a few moves, but no one was able to gain the upper hand. The two saw that their opponent's strength was not ordinary, so they stopped fighting at the same time and quietly retreated. Kun Wu stood in the sea of clouds and stared at the two black figures leaving. A playful smile appeared on his face. Interesting. Ji Tianqing has only been in the monarch mansion for a few days, and he has already been targeted. Looking at the posture of the two men in black, one wants to sneak into Tianqing Palace to assassinate, while the other hides outside Tianqing Palace, secretly protecting and guarding. The two guys are acting secretly and don't want to be discovered by Ji Tianqing. It seems that Ji Tianqing's identity and background are not as simple as they seem. If he is just a commoner from the 9 regions of the southern land, how could he cause such a disturbance? Kun Wu thought to himself and became more and more curious about Ji Tianqing's identity and background. In Tianqing Palace, in the second tallest and loftiest palace. In a room on the top floor of the palace, it was quiet and dark. Ji Tianqing was standing by the window, looking indifferently at the night sky not far away. There was a trace of cold killing intent in his eyes. Yen stood beside him and also stared at the night sky outside the window. Just now, the scene of the two men in black fighting in the night sky had already fallen into their eyes. Yen frowned and shouted angrily in a low voice, "I thought that the monarch mansion was the holy land of martial arts. I didn't expect that this place is also not a good place. We just entered the monarch mansion for a few days, and someone can't wait to make a move on us." Ji Tianqing said calmly, "That man in black of unknown origin has been secretly spying on Tianqing Palace for several nights. I expect that after he finds out the situation of Tianqing Palace, he will definitely be unable to hold back his killing intent and find a chance to sneak into the palace to assassinate us. I have already set up the Tianyuan array in the courtyard, waiting for that man in black to walk into the trap and see who he is. Chapter 541. Ever since Yunyao warned Ji Tianqing, he had been on guard for the past few days. Not only was he on guard against the people from the Duanmu and Murong families, but he was also on guard against the other princes who approached him rashly. In fact, even when he was cultivating or sleeping in the Sky Air Palace, he was constantly on guard. Although there weren't any guards or experts guarding the huge heavenly palace, there were still many of them. But in the past few days, he had set up powerful Tianyuan formations everywhere in the palace. With his attainments in formations, the Tianyuan formations he set up were very powerful. They were enough to fight and kill low-level Tianyuan powerhouses. The ubiquitous Tianyuan formations were much more effective than the guards. Of course, Yan knew about Ji Tianqing's plan and the deployment he had made over the past few days. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he whispered to Ji Tianqing, "Senior brother Tianqing, you've been planning for a few days and made sufficient preparations. It's a pity that the black-clothed assassin didn't manage to sneak in and was stopped by another black-clothed man." However, the second black-clothed man who appeared was lurking outside Tianqing Palace. He seemed to be protecting us and helping us block the assassin. I wonder who that person is? Or, who sent him here? Ji Tianqing also looked puzzled. He nodded slightly and said, "That's right. We have to investigate the identity of the second black-clothed man as soon as possible. We don't have any other friends in the Emperor Palace other than Senior Sister. Who would secretly protect us?" Yan pursed his lips and thought for a moment. Then, he whispered, "Senior brother, the only answer I can think of is Senior Sister. I don't think anyone else would send anyone to protect us other than her, right?" Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, "Not necessarily. If Senior Sister wanted to help us, she could have just told us. Why would she send someone to protect us secretly? Besides, the second black-clothed man was a Tianyuan powerhouse. How could Senior Sister mobilize a Tianyuan powerhouse to protect us? She only has one Sky Origin Stage cultivator by her side, and he is the leader of the guards arranged by the Cloud Spirit Palace. He only listens to the Cloud Spirit Palace." Yunyao had always been in the Sky Pillar sect, so she didn't have any trusted aides or guards by her side. Even if she wanted to mobilize Sky Origin Stage experts from Cloud Spirit Palace to secretly protect Tianqing Palace, the Yun family might not agree. Sky Origin Stage cultivators were not cabbages. Even in the ancient clans, they were the mainstays. How could they be ordered around? Yana listened to Ji Tianqing's explanation and immediately understood the key point. However, this made him even more confused. "Senior brother Tianqing, if it wasn't eldest Senior Sister's men, then who could it be?" Ji Tianqing frowned and shook his head, saying in a deep voice, "I can't think of anyone who would secretly help us. Now that we are in the open, those who want to deal with us and those who want to help us are all in the dark. The water in the imperial residence is getting muddier and muddier. We have to investigate it as soon as possible so that we can seize the opportunity." "Yes." Yen nodded with a firm expression, full of confidence in him. Ji Tianqing patted his shoulder and said in a deep voice, "That black-clothed assassin was stopped. He won't take the bait again tonight. Yenner, go back and rest." After that, the two left the room and returned to their respective residences. Ji Tianqing returned to his room and sat cross-legged on his bed, silently cultivating. Now that he had his own spirit vein and cave, the biggest benefit was that he didn't have to worry about cultivation resources. Tianqing Palace had an endless amount of spirit qi, which allowed him to cultivate with twice the result with half the effort. Even the burial of heaven in Kenshin's tomb could continuously absorb the spirit qi of heaven and earth to speed up the recovery of his strength. Tianqing Palace was located above the spring of the spirit vein, so the spirit qi was extremely abundant. There was also a super large array set up in the cave, which gathered the spirit qi from all directions, causing the spirit qi in the palace to form 5-colored spirit clouds. As soon as Ji Tianqing started to practice cultivation, the 5-colored clouds above the palace turned into wisps of 5-colored spirit mist that poured into his body in an endless stream. The incomparably pure spirit chi of heaven and earth turned into surging vital essence and surged violently in the sword palace in his body. He cultivated the 8th level of the path of the sword heart. While constantly tempering the sword palace, he also allowed the sword embryo to gradually grow and strengthen, accumulating more and more vital essence. The 8th level of the path of the sword heart is to temper the body to the extreme and reach the limit of strength. Only when the body reaches the limit and is fully prepared can I cultivate the 9th level of the path of the sword heart and merge with the sword heart. In addition, I have to master the wood and earth elemental energy as soon as possible so that I can gather the power of the 5 elements and increase my strength faster. Ji Tianqing silently calculated in his heart. He had already made preparations and arrangements for his future cultivation plan and steps. After a while, he entered a state of emptiness and concentrated on cultivating, forgetting the passage of time. 2 days passed quickly. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ji Tianqing was still meditating in the room, surrounded by 5-colored spirit qi. At this moment, Yan came to the door and called softly, "Senior Tianqing, are you in the room? Senior Marshal brother, here's an invitation for you." Ji Tianqing was awakened by Yan's voice. He ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He was still sitting on the green jade bed. He waved his hand and released a ray of spirit qi to open the door. "Yan, what's the matter? Come in." Yan hurriedly walked into the room, holding a sandalwood box inlaid with gold and jade in both hands and handed it to him. "Senior Tianqing, just now a black-armored guard from the imperial residence came to the gate of the Tianqing Palace and handed this box to me. The guard said that there was an invitation inside and asked me to hand it to you." "An invitation from the imperial residence's guard?" Ji Tianqing frowned in confusion. He reached out and took the sandalwood box, holding it in the palm of his hand and looking at it. "Who sent the invitation? Why would they put it in such a luxurious box?" As he said, he waved his hand and released a ray of spirit qi to unlock the simple array on the sandalwood box. Then, he opened the sandalwood box and took out a red-stamped invitation. He flipped open the luxurious and exquisite invitation card and carefully read its contents. After 10 breaths of time, he finished reading the contents of the invitation. Suddenly, his face changed slightly and he frowned. Yan had been looking at him with a puzzled face. Seeing his strange expression, she couldn't help but ask, "Senior Tianqing, what's wrong? Who sent this invitation card?" Ji Tianqing closed the invitation, put it back into the sandalwood box, and put it into the space ring. He replied with a normal expression, "Long Yun Xiao." "Long Yun Xiao?" Yan became more and more confused and asked, "Hasn't the emperor been healing and didn't return to the imperial residence? Why did he send you an invitation?" Ji Tianqing got up and walked to the door. He said calmly, "In 3 days, he will choose a heavenly consort at the Enlightening Heaven Pagoda in the imperial court. He invited me to attend the ceremony." Yan's expression suddenly changed. She muttered in a serious tone, "What should come will come. The emperor is finally going to choose a consort." Chapter 542. It had been half a month since the battle between Ji Tianqing and Long Yun Xiao at the imperial stage. During this time, Long Yun Xiao had not returned to the imperial palace, nor had he appeared in public. Many people guessed that he must have been seriously injured and was still recovering in seclusion. Only Ji Tianqing knew that although Long Yun Xiao's injuries were not light, it was not to the extent that he had to recuperate in seclusion for half a month. However, he had not mentioned anything about the imperial concubine selection in the past half a month. In the depths of his heart, he had silently agreed that Long Yun Xiao was a gentleman. He would not go back on his words and choose Yun Yao as his imperial concubine. However, there had to be a conclusion to this matter. Before Long Yun Xiao officially chose his imperial concubine, anything could happen. There were still many unknown variables. Therefore, after Ji Tianqing received the invitation, he had to go to the imperial palace to watch the ceremony no matter what. He had to see Long Yunxiao choose his imperial concubine with his own eyes before he could truly be at ease. After leaving the room, Ji Tianqing summoned Yan, Ji Ku, and Qian Yu. He solemnly instructed them. In 3 days, Long Yunxiao will choose his imperial concubine at the Apocalypse Pagoda. I have to go to the imperial palace personally. In the next few days, the 3 of you will stay in Tianqing Palace. Don't go out if there's nothing important. If there's anything, wait for me to come back. After that, Ji Tianqing left Tianqing Palace alone and flew towards the imperial palace's exit. He flapped his golden wings and flew across the vast sea of clouds like a shooting star. He crossed one mountain after another. After about 2 hours, he was about to reach the imperial palace's exit. Only then did he realize that there were a few imperial princes in the sky nearby. They were also flying towards the exit. When he saw that those imperial princes were all humans, he immediately frowned and thought to himself, the imperial princes rarely show themselves. They are either cultivating in seclusion in their cave abodes or training in the outside world. Why did so many human imperial princes appear at the same time today and leave the imperial palace? Could it be that they also received Long Yunxiao's invitation and are going to the imperial palace to watch the ceremony? Just as he was secretly guessing, a kind voice suddenly called out from behind him. Junior brother Ji, please wait. Ji Tianqing was no stranger to this voice. He did not need to turn around to know that the person who spoke was Ling Yisan. As expected, he stopped in the sky and turned around to look behind him. He saw Ling Yichong flying over at lightning speed. Shwa! Ling Yi flew to Ji Tianqing's side and stopped. With a face full of smiles, he cupped his hands in greeting. Junior brother Ji, where are you going? If I'm not wrong, you should also be going to the imperial court, right? Ji Tianqing could tell that Ling Yichen had a cheerful and passionate personality. For some reason, Ling Yichen seemed to be trying to get close to him on purpose. That was why he took the initiative to greet him. Fortunately, when Ling Yi was trying to worm his way into being friends with him, his expression revealed some sincerity, unlike Murong Lingfeng's hypocrisy. Therefore, Ji Tianqing nodded and said, that's right, I'm going to the imperial court to observe the ceremony. Why, is senior brother Ling also going to the imperial court? Ling Yichong immediately smiled. He took out a sandalwood box from his spatial ring and said, what a coincidence. The emperor also sent me an invitation, inviting me to observe the ceremony. Yes, if I'm not wrong, the emperor might have sent invitations to the dozen or so princes of the human race. As he spoke, he pointed at the princes in the sky not far away. There were a total of 7 princes of the human race. 3 of them were moving alone, while the other 4 were moving in groups. Ji Tianqing glanced at the princes and said with a calm expression, the emperor's selection of heavenly concubines is of great importance. It's only right for him to invite our princes to observe the ceremony. It's still very far from Central State City to the imperial court. I'm afraid of wasting time, so I'll take my leave first. With that, Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bid farewell to Ling Yichong. He was about to turn and leave. However, Ling Yichong caught up with him again and said with a smile, Junior brother Ji, if I'm not wrong, you probably haven't been to the imperial court yet, right? It'll take at least 2 days to travel from Central State City to the imperial court. If you're not familiar with the route, it'll be hard to avoid wasting time and affecting the ceremony. Since we're brothers and we're going to the imperial court to observe the ceremony together, why don't we travel together? I'll lead the way for you. Ji Tianqing saw how enthusiastic he was and subconsciously wanted to reject him. However, he suddenly thought of something and swallowed his rejection. He nodded and said, that's good too. Then I'll have to trouble you, senior brother Ling. Ling Yichong was a little surprised to see Ji Tianqing agree so readily. This guy. He was cold to me before and seemed to be on guard against me. Why did he agree so readily today? Although Ling Yichong was puzzled, he didn't show it on his face and didn't show any abnormalities. Junior brother Ji is too polite. We brothers should take care of each other. He smiled and said politely. Ji Tianqing only nodded and didn't say anything else. After that, the two of them traveled together and rushed to the exit of the imperial residence. They then left the imperial residence together. Swoosh! With a flash of light, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichang's figures appeared in the divine steel forest at the same time. Ji Tianqing was about to fly up into the sky, but Ling Yichang pulled him back and said seriously, "Junior brother Ji, for safety's sake, it's better for us to change our appearance before we travel. I'm not famous in the first place, so I'm not afraid of others seeing through my identity. However, junior brother Ji, you're now an influential figure in Central State City. Who knows how many people are paying attention to you? It's better for you to be more cautious." Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment before he smiled and nodded. "Senior brother Ling is still the most considerate. Then we'll do as you say to avoid some unnecessary trouble." Thus, he used a meticulous technique to control the muscles and nerves on his face, slightly changing the outline and appearance of his facial features. Although, on the surface, his appearance didn't seem to have changed much. However, his facial features and appearance had changed. Even if Yan, and Ji Ke saw him, it would be hard for them to recognize him at first glance. After changing his appearance, Ji Tianqing's body flashed with a golden light. The white robe he wore disappeared into thin air and turned into a long, sapphire blue robe. In this way, he changed from a handsome and mighty heaven's prime expert, a noble imperial prince, to an ordinary noble young master in the mortal world. After changing his appearance, he looked at Ling Yichang beside him and found that Ling Yichang had also changed his appearance. He was dressed as a rich young master like him. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Then, they passed through the divine steel forest like a gust of wind and rushed towards the southern city gate of Central State City. Not long after the two of them left, several human imperial princes came out of the imperial residence one after another. However, these princes swaggered into the sky and flew towards the south at lightning speed. Chapter 543. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen ran as fast as the wind in Central State City. On the surface, they looked like ordinary rich young masters in the city, with only the strength of the Origin Core realm. No one would have thought that they were both powerhouses of the divine Origin realm, and were unparalleled imperial princes. However, while they were rushing, they noticed that there were divine Origin realm powerhouses flying over their heads. They could recognize at a glance that those figures that were as fast as flowing light were the imperial princes of the human race who came out of the monarch mansion. Many commoners and martial practitioners in the city were alarmed by those imperial princes. They all looked up at the sky and discussed in groups of 3 to 5. Ling Yichen smiled and said to Ji Tianqing, "Those fellows didn't hide their identities at all. Flying over so openly will definitely attract the attention and discussion of the commoners." Ji Tianqing nodded and didn't say anything. However, he thought to himself, if it's just being noticed and discussed by the commoners, then it's nothing. When I was in the monarch mansion, there were people who wanted to sneak into Tianqing Palace to assassinate me. Now that I'm out of the monarch mansion, those who want to deal with me won't let go of this opportunity. It was because he understood this that he listened to Ling Yichen's advice and changed his appearance. However, he was secretly puzzled. Why did Ling Yichen take the initiative to remind me to change my appearance? Does he know something? It'll take 2 days to get to the imperial court. I'll take this opportunity to observe this person. 2 hours later, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen passed through the South City Gate and left Central State City. After leaving Central State City, there were endless mountains and rivers outside the city. There were very few people. It was only then that Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen flew high into the sky, flying south as fast as flowing light. The two of them flew high in the sky, crossing thousands of mountains and rivers along the way. They also passed by many villages and cities. During the journey, Ji Tianqing remained silent, secretly observing Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen didn't do anything out of the ordinary. As he flew, he was vigilant of his surroundings. He would occasionally chat with Ji Tianqing, but it was all about the monarch mansion. Unknowingly, a day had passed. In the evening, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yi had flown for an entire day. They had used up a lot of their true essence, so they were a little tired and sleepy. Thus, the two of them landed on the peak of a tall mountain and stopped to circulate their chi to regulate their breathing. This towering mountain was over 10,000 feet tall, surrounded by undulating mountain ranges and a vast, dark green primitive forest. The mountain peak beneath their feet was naturally covered by a lush forest. There were towering trees all around, and the ground was covered with waist-high weeds and thorny bushes. Ji Tianqing found a large millstone in the woods and set up a defensive formation around the large stone. Then, he sat on the large stone and circulated his energy to regulate his breathing. Ling Yi found a towering tree 100 meters away from him and sat on the treetop to meditate and cultivate. As the sun set, the sky darkened. Night was about to fall. Ling Yi sat on the treetop and meditated quietly for 2 hours. He used up 2 spirit stones and recovered most of his chi. He temporarily ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. His gaze passed through the lush foliage and looked at Ji Tianqing 100 meters away. Seeing Ji Tianqing circulating his chi to regulate his breathing without any distractions, as if he wasn't on guard against everything around him, he couldn't help but frown. Sigh. Outside of Central State City, his situation must be even more dangerous. Why does he seem to be completely unaware? Ling Yi muttered in his heart, feeling an inexplicable sense of worry. However, when he thought about it again, he felt that something was wrong. Ji Tianqing came from a humble background, but he was able to walk step by step until today. After experiencing so many dangers and crises, he can still live safe and sound. He's definitely not a reckless and careless person. Thinking like this, he felt a little more at ease. Then, he withdrew his gaze from observing Ji Tianqing and quietly released his spiritual sense to explore in all directions. His spiritual sense soundlessly enveloped a radius of 400 meters, monitoring the surrounding pitch-black night. Whether it was the poisonous insects hiding in the forest or the snakes and ants hiding underground, none of them could escape his spiritual senses probing. Seeing that the surroundings were quiet and that there were no abnormalities, Ling Yi felt relieved. However, at this moment, in the sky above the mountain peak, a dazzling cold light suddenly lit up and shot down like lightning. Swoosh! It was a 2-meter-long blue light that cut through the night like a meteor. In the blink of an eye, it arrived above the forest and pierced towards Ji Tianqing's head. Ling Yi immediately sensed that something was wrong. Looking carefully, he discovered that there was an icy blue flying knife the length of a chopstick in the 2-meter-long blue light. Although the flying knife wasn't big, it was a Heaven Origin grade treasure. It was indestructible and contained a terrifying power that could pierce through everything. The 2-meter-long blue light was actually the tail flame of the flying dagger. Junior Marshal Brother Ji, be careful. Ling Yi didn't have time to think. He immediately used his spiritual sense to warn Ji Tianqing. Almost as soon as his voice fell, Ji Tianqing, who was circulating and adjusting his breath, suddenly opened his eyes. At that moment, a cold killing intent flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes. Like a cold sword light, it tore through the night in front of him. Swoosh! In the nick of time, a dark sword appeared in his left hand. His right hand held the hilt and pulled out the sword with a clang. Dragon soars from the 9th heaven. The moment the sword was unsheathed, a 10-meter-long cold sword light lit up and condensed into the shadow of a divine dragon. Roar! The divine dragon sword's shadow let out a dragon's roar and slashed towards the night sky from below to meet the icy blue flying knife head-on. In a split second, the divine dragon sword's shadow fiercely slashed at the icy blue flying knife. The sound of metal clashing against metal rang out. Clang! The 2-meter-long blue flame was shattered in an instant, and the Heaven Origin level icy blue flying dagger was sent flying back. The icy blue flying knife lost its support and tumbled towards the night sky in the distance. At this moment, a blue figure cut through the night sky and reached out to catch the icy blue flying knife. It was a thin figure wearing a blue robe with a veil over his face. His entire body was emitting an icy blue cold air. He stared at Ji Tianqing with cold eyes. His right hand surged with a majestic true essence and infused it into the icy blue flying knife. He shook his hand and threw the flying knife at Ji Tianqing. Swoosh! The icy blue flying knife's power once again soared to the limit. It tore through the night sky and shot towards Ji Tianqing with a 2-meter-long icy blue tail flame. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. He stared at the blue-robed assassin in the night sky and sneered. Humph! Finally willing to show yourself? At the same time, Ling Yi flew towards Ji Tianqing with a black sword in his hand. He wanted to help him deal with the blue-robed assassin. Chapter 544. That powerful and violent flaming sword beam instantly tore through the dark night and went straight for Ling Yi Chong. He turned his head and saw a tall and sturdy black figure appear in the dark forest. It was a tall and sturdy man in black. He held a sword that flashed with cold light in his hand and exuded a frightening murderous aura. Ling Yi could no longer help Ji Tianqing. He could only wave his black sword and slash out 3 sword rays to block the incoming flaming sword ray. Bang bang bang. The 4 sword rays collided with each other fiercely and exploded with a few muffled noises that echoed in the night sky. The flaming sword ray was defeated and turned into flames that covered the sky and earth, pouring down in torrents in the dark forest. The man in black rushed to the front of Ling Yi and swung his sword again, sending out several dazzling cold lights. A murderous intent flashed through Ling Yi's eyes. He hurriedly used his sword arts and fought with his opponent. At the same time, Ji Tianqing, who was 100 meters away, swung his sword again and sent the icy blue flying dagger flying. His figure flashed and flew into the night sky. He turned into a golden flowing light and took the initiative to attack the blue-robed assassin. The blue-robed assassin furrowed his brows. His eyes were filled with anger. He shouted in a low voice, "You dare to take the initiative to counterattack? You're courting death." He shouted in a low voice. A light flashed in his palm and a golden saber appeared out of thin air. Xian Bing slash. The blue-robed assassin held the saber with both hands and slashed out 36 icy blue saber rays. They were like countless icicles that stabbed at Ji Tianqing fiercely. The saber rays emitted a bone-chilling cold air that instantly enveloped a radius of several hundred meters. It made half of the mountain peak as cold as ice and snow. The air seemed to be frozen as well. Ji Tianqing was surrounded by dozens of saber rays. His body was frozen stiff by the bone-chilling cold air. His blood seemed to have solidified. However, he had already put away the black dragon sword. He activated the sword embryo's power and released a dazzling flaming sword. Crimson Dragon Flash. The 20-meter-long flaming sword carried an incomparably violent power and fiercely blasted toward the blue-robed assassin. The crimson flames condensed into a flaming divine dragon, exuding unparalleled heat and flame waves that swept in all directions. Suddenly, the dark night sky was illuminated with a dark red color, as if half of the sky was burning. The cold air that had shrouded half of the mountain peak was also dispelled. The 36 icy blue blade auras also quickly melted under the high temperature, their power greatly reduced. Peng peng peng. The huge flaming sword and the icy saber collided with a loud bang, causing a series of loud and muffled sounds to resound fiercely in the night sky. All of the cold blade lights were shattered into pieces of ice crystals that blotted out the sky, and were burned into water vapor by the flame and the high temperature. Instantly, the night sky was filled with water vapor. The blue-robed assassin clearly hadn't expected Ji Tianqing's strength to be so tyrannical, easily dispelling his attack. When the water mist that filled the sky surged, Ji Tianqing had already passed through the water mist as fast as lightning, charging towards him. The blue-robed assassin immediately sensed that something was wrong, and hurriedly retreated into the distance. His left hand emitted a dazzling icy blue brilliance, and 9 icy blue flying daggers immediately appeared in his palm, releasing a bone-chilling blade aura. The 9 flying daggers were all heaven origin level treasures, and they were a set of flying daggers in a chain. They could also form a dagger array, containing hundreds of changes and infinite power. 100 Transformation Divine Dagger. The blue-robed assassin growled with a murderous aura. He suddenly waved his hand and sent out 9 flying daggers, which turned into 9 icy blue lights that shot towards Ji Tianqing like meteors. The 9 icy blue lights scattered, covering the sky within a kilometer radius, and immediately formed a dagger array. The area within a kilometer radius was sealed by the invisible power of the array. The fierce and violent blade aura shuttled back and forth within the dagger array, crisscrossing and strangling. Ji Tianqing had just passed through the water mist and was about to rush towards the blue-robed assassin when he was caught in the dagger array. 9 icy blue blade lights whooshed over, piercing through the night sky and attacking his vital parts from all directions. At this critical moment, he had no time to dodge or counterattack, and could only use his golden wings to block. Golden Rock Wings. The golden wings transformed from Kenshin's battle robe instantly closed, and Ji Tianqing's body was enveloped. The 9 icy blue daggers exploded with the most violent power, and slashed at him fiercely, but they were all blocked by the golden wings. Bang bang bang. In a series of muffled sounds, the icy blue daggers were all shattered, revealing the 9 flying daggers, which were all knocked back. However, the 9 flying daggers drew a few arcs in the night sky, and immediately lit up with icy blue lights, recovering their strength. The flying daggers flew in circles in the night sky, waiting for an opportunity to strike, and could launch another attack at any time. Ji Tianqing was knocked back 100 steps before he could stop. He spread his golden wings, and stared at the 9 icy blue daggers with a cold smile. Dagger array? Interesting. The blue-robed assassin looked at Ji Tianqing coldly. Seeing that there was not a single wound on his body, he frowned. This hateful brat can actually block my 100 transformation dagger? The information is wrong. This brat's combat ability is comparable to the 3rd level of Sky Origin Stage. He definitely has not just reached Sky Origin Stage. The blue-robed assassin thought that tonight was the best opportunity for assassination. With his strength, he could easily kill Ji Tianqing, who had just reached Sky Origin Stage. However, after he showed up, he had exchanged a few blows with Ji Tianqing, but he could not gain the slightest advantage. While he was furious, he had no choice but to take Ji Tianqing's strength seriously and treat him seriously. He was no longer in a hurry to attack, but secretly performed a secret technique to increase the power of the dagger array, and suppressed Ji Tianqing fiercely. I'll trap this brat with the dagger array first, then find a chance to kill him together. The blue-robed assassin thought, and subconsciously turned his head to look at the eastern night sky. In the night sky thousands of meters away from him, the black-robed man was fighting fiercely with Ling Yichuan. Both of them unleashed their strongest strength, swinging their swords and slashing out enormous sword auras that covered the sky, and collided fiercely with each other. Bang bang bang. The muffled sounds kept exploding, and spread far in the night sky. One after another, the sword auras shattered with a bang, creating a violent and devastating shockwave that spread in all directions like a hurricane. The mountain peaks around the two, and the primitive forest under their feet, were all devastated by the violent shockwave. Many enormous ravines and pits appeared. Obviously, the black-robed man and Ling Yichuan were evenly matched in strength. It would be difficult to determine the winner in a short time. The blue-robed assassin was still hoping that the black-robed man would finish off Ling Yichuan as soon as possible, and join forces with him to kill Ji Tianqing. Now it seemed that the black-robed man could not be counted on. If he wanted to kill Ji Tianqing, he could only rely on himself. The blue-robed assassin turned back to look at Ji Tianqing. He waved his hand and shot out streaks of icy blue light into the dagger array. The power of the dagger array suddenly increased, releasing thousands of icy blue dagger lights that shot toward Ji Tianqing like a rain of arrows. Ji Tianqing dodged and blocked the attacks, but his eyes were shining with wisdom and calmness. He was observing the dagger array, and quickly looking for a flaw in the dagger array. After a short 10 breaths, a bright light suddenly flashed through his eyes, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Chapter 545. Without a doubt, the blue-robed assassin's sword array was not even worth mentioning in front of Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing only used 10 breaths of time to see the flaws and weaknesses of the sword array. As soon as he finished speaking, he activated all of his power, and his whole body ignited with a monstrous golden flame. White Tiger Sacred Sword. Following Ji Tianqing's shout, his body merged with the monstrous golden flame and turned into a 20-meter-long golden sword. Kill. The golden flame around the golden sword condensed into a sacred white tiger, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was incomparably ferocious. The white tiger sacred sword emitted a terrifying killing intent that could destroy heaven and earth. With an unstoppable momentum, it fiercely charged towards the night sky on the left. Although this sword was not aimed at the blue-robed assassin, but at the empty night sky, it seemed a little baffling. However, when the blue-robed assassin saw this unparalleled killing sword, his expression changed drastically. His eyes revealed a deep shock. How could he see the flaws of the sword array in such a short time? The blue-robed assassin boasted of his great attainments in array Dao. Combining array Dao and sword arts to form a sword array was his most prized skill. However, he did not dare to believe that the 100 transformation sword array, which he relied on to become famous, could be seen through so easily by Ji Tianqing. At the critical moment, he hurriedly controlled the sword array, wanting to operate the array to hide the flaws and weaknesses of the sword array. However, it was all too late. Boom! The white tiger sacred sword was like a meteor streaking across the night sky. It instantly pierced the flaw of the sword array, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. It lit up with an overwhelming icy blue light. Under the impact of the unparalleled sharpness, a huge hole was instantly blasted open in the 100 transformation sword array. A huge gap was torn open. The 100 transformation sword array was heavily damaged and immediately collapsed. The 9 icy blue flying daggers lost their support and instantly became dim. They fell from the sky powerlessly. However, the blue-robed assassin did not have time to care about the 9 flying daggers. He stared at the white tiger sacred sword in fear and desperately retreated. This was because after the white tiger sacred sword shattered the saber formation, its power was still undiminished as it ruthlessly charged towards him. The white tiger sacred sword had locked onto his aura. No matter where he ran or how he changed directions, he would not be able to escape the white tiger sacred sword's pursuit. Shwa! In the blink of an eye, the white tiger sacred sword streaked across the night sky and struck the blue-robed assassin, submerging his figure. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, the blue-robed assassin was sent flying, blood spurting from his mouth. His figure drew an arc in the night sky and fell into the valley 1,000 meters away. The white tiger sacred sword also dissipated, and Ji Tianqing's figure appeared, standing proudly in the night sky. He stared at the blue-robed assassin falling from the sky and murmured to himself, "Is this an ordinary sky origin stage cultivator? He is even weaker than Long Yunxiao, who is at the second level of sky origin stage." Even though he still didn't know the identity of the blue-robed assassin. However, there was one thing that he was certain of. The blue-robed assassin was definitely not a crown prince from the monarch mansion. After all, the crown princes who could enter the monarch mansion were all peerless geniuses. They were outstanding cultivators with all kinds of secret skills. For example, Long Yunxiao, who was at the second level of sky origin stage, could easily defeat an ordinary sky origin stage cultivator. Every crown prince was a genius cultivator who could challenge cultivators who were at a higher level than them. At this moment, the blue-robed assassin who was about to fall into the valley flew back to the sky with a flash of cold light. Shwa! The blue-robed assassin flew back to the sky and stood 1,000 meters away from Ji Tianqing. He stared at Ji Tianqing with hatred in his eyes. There was a bowl-sized hole in his abdomen. Blood was gushing out from the hole. Blood was also flowing out from his nose and mouth, dripping onto his blue robe. "Kid, I have underestimated you. However, you will still die tonight." The blue-robed assassin shouted with a ferocious face. His hoarse voice was filled with hatred and killing intent. He held his saber with both hands, and his body was burning with an icy blue flame. He exploded with a terrifying aura. 5 Qis converge. He did not hesitate to use 70% of his true origin to use this secret skill, which doubled his combat power in a short period of time. Suddenly, the blue-robed assassin's body expanded, and the saber in his hand shone with a dazzling cold light. Hurricane Ice Dragon Slash! He roared with a thunderous voice. He held his saber with both hands and slashed at Ji Tianqing with all his might. Shwa! A 30-meter-long Frost Divine Dragon appeared. The Frost Divine Dragon formed by the saber radiance shone with a dazzling icy blue light, illuminating the night sky. It was emitting a bone-chilling cold that covered the entire sky above the mountain. The Frost Divine Dragon stretched out its claws and opened its mouth. It rushed toward Ji Tianqing with an icy hurricane that swept across the sky. Ji Tianqing's aura was locked. He could not dodge or run away. He could only block or fight back. At this critical moment, he raised his left arm without hesitation and activated the red flame primordial fire. Burning Sky Palm. His magma-like left arm spewed out endless red flame primordial fire. It condensed into a giant flaming palm that covered the sky and blasted toward the Frost Divine Dragon. At that moment, the night sky within a radius of dozens of miles was illuminated red by the boundless red flame. Half of the sky was burning. Boom! The giant flaming palm collided with the Frost Divine Dragon, and there was a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens. An invisible sound wave exploded, shaking the mountains and the ground within a radius of 50 miles. The mighty Frost Divine Dragon was smashed into pieces by the giant flaming palm, turning into thousands of ice crystal fragments. Countless ice crystal fragments were engulfed by the monstrous flames and evaporated into nothingness. They dissipated in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, the giant flaming palm blasted the blue-robed assassin, turning him into charred pieces. The giant flaming palm wrapped around his corpse and blasted a 1,000-foot mountain 5 miles away. With a loud boom, the 1,000-foot mountain was shattered on the spot, turning into scorched ruins. Endless dust and gravel mixed with the flames rushed into the sky, covering a radius of dozens of miles. The earth and mountains around the ruins trembled violently, and huge ravines appeared on the ground. The surging red flame exploded, drowning the dozens of nearby mountains and turning them into a boundless sea of fire. Such an earth-shattering commotion lasted for a full quarter of an hour. The monstrous fire burned for a long time before gradually dissipating. After a long time, when the flames that covered the sky dissipated, Ji Tianqing's figure was revealed. He stood in the sky unscathed, gazing at the scorched ruins 5 miles away, and muttered regretfully. Unfortunately, that guy has been blasted into pieces. I can't figure out his identity. At this time, Ling Yi flew over like a stream of light and landed beside him. When Ling Yichen saw that the surrounding mountain peaks had shattered and that the area of several dozen miles had turned into scorched earth and ruins, his face was instantly filled with shock. Chapter 546. A Sky Origin Stage cultivator indeed had the power to split mountains and rivers. However, Ji Tianqing's giant flame palm was able to turn a radius of several dozen miles into a sea of fire and scorched earth. It was truly terrifying. Even if Ling Yichen's strength was 3 levels higher than his, he still couldn't do it. He witnessed the power of the burning sky palm with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked and horrified? However, Ji Tianqing's expression was indifferent. His eyes were as calm as ever. He turned his head to look at Ling Yichen beside him and asked, "Senior brother Ling, where's that black-clothed man?" Ling Yichen was startled for a moment. He revealed an embarrassed smile and explained, "That black-clothed assassin's strength has reached the 4th level of Sky Origin Stage. He's on par with me. I fought with him for more than 10 moves, but it was still difficult to determine the victor. Although I had the upper hand, it was still very difficult to defeat him in a short period of time. It just so happened that you used that burning sky palm. Its power was too terrifying. Both the black-clothed man and I hurriedly dodged. In the chaos, the black-clothed man saw that the situation wasn't good and fled." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a solemn expression, "In that case, we still can't figure out who sent the 2 assassins even though we fought with them. A trace of self-blame flashed through Ling Yichen's eyes. He hurriedly comforted him, "Junior brother Ji, I've already memorized the black-clothed man's aura. If I meet him again, I'll definitely be able to recognize him." That's good too." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a calm tone, "Senior brother Ling, one assassin is dead, and the other has escaped. The other party probably won't make any more moves tonight. Let's leave this place first and find a safe place to rest for a while." Ling Yichen naturally nodded in agreement. He followed him into the night sky and continued to fly towards the south. The two of them flew through the night sky as fast as lightning, chatting with each other through spiritual sense as they hurried along. Ji Tianqing looked calm on the surface, but he was probing Ling Yichen indirectly. He asked, "Senior brother Ling, you seem to have guessed that there were assassins who wanted to assassinate us?" Ling Yichen was startled for a moment before he explained with a smile, "Not us, but you. I'm alone, I don't have any enemies. On the other hand, Junior Marshal brother Ji, you've been in the limelight recently. You'll definitely attract the attention of various forces. There were as many experts as there were clouds in the central continent. Various powerful forces emerged one after another. The relationships between them were inextricably linked and intertwined. It was very complicated. Perhaps you haven't done anything, but you've already offended someone unknowingly, hindering the development and plans of some forces. Therefore, it is inevitable that there will be people who want to kill you in the cradle." Ling Yichen's words seemed to have said a lot, but he did not say anything clearly. It was ambiguous and unclear. However, Ji Tianqing understood that Ling Yichen was reminding him to be careful. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Senior brother Ling, why did you save me in such a dangerous situation? You and I are just acquaintances. You don't have to risk your life for me." Ling Yichen frowned as he looked at him, his tone disappointed as he said, "Junior brother Ji, we're both princes of the Clear Cloud Divine Masters sect, so we're fellow brothers. I really didn't expect that I would treat you as my junior brother, but you would treat me as an outsider. Sigh. If I knew you were thinking like this, I would have decisively run away just now and left you alone. I would have left you to fend for yourself." As he said this, he even shook his head gloomily, an expression of disappointment on his face. Ji Tianqing looked at him from the side. Unable to see through his true thoughts, he could only temporarily suppress the guesses in his heart. "Senior brother Ling, you've misunderstood. What I mean is that you could have stayed out of this. There was no need for you to risk your life to save me. Since you've acted righteously and saved me, I'm naturally grateful to you and have to say thank you." Ling Yichen glanced at him, looking like he was considering it again. "If you want to thank me, you can't just say it. Let's see how you perform in the future." Ji Tianqing only smiled and did not say anything else. An hour later, the two of them flew 300 kilometers away and entered an ancient city. The two of them stayed in a luxurious inn and rested for a few hours. After daybreak, the two of them recovered their physical strength and true essence. They left the inn and continued to rush south. For the rest of the day, the two of them sped through the sky. They did not encounter any more dangers or ambushes along the way. This evening, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen finally entered the sky-connecting mountain range and arrived at the foot of heaven-reaching peak. The sun was setting in the west. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on heaven-reaching peak, causing the entire peak to be covered in a layer of faint golden light. It appeared even more sacred and dignified. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen stood at the plaza at the foot of the mountain, sizing up this towering peak. They saw that there were dozens of statues that were 100 meters tall around the plaza that was 1,000 meters in radius. These statues were of the sages and experts of the human race. They were placed on the plaza for the people of the human race to worship. At the end of the plaza, there was a wide black stone divine path that extended along the steep mountain slope to the mountainside. Many palaces and buildings were built on the slopes on both sides of the divine path, exuding an ancient aura. Moreover, every 100 steps on the divine path, there was an imperial court imperial guard wearing silver armor and holding a long halberd. These imperial court imperial guards were all dignified. They stood like stone statues and did not move at all, appearing extremely solemn and respectful. Going up the divine path, they reached halfway up the mountain, where the white clouds and mist covered everything. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen looked up at heaven-reaching peak, revealing a respectful and solemn expression. Ling Yichen said with a solemn expression, "Junior brother Ji, this giant peak is the sacred land of the human race, heaven-reaching peak. The imperial court is located at the peak of heaven-reaching peak. This should be your first time in the imperial court, right? Later, you must properly admire the scenery of heaven-reaching peak." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a calm expression, "Let's go up." Then, he and Ling Yichen returned to their original appearances, becoming the dignified and extraordinary imperial princes. The two of them crossed the wide plaza and stepped onto the divine path paved with black stone, walking towards the mountainside. The consort selection ceremony was tomorrow. It was still early, so the two of them were not in a hurry. They walked towards the mountainside while admiring the scenery along the way. Heaven-reaching peak was surrounded by lush green mountain ranges. Numerous towering mountains were situated in the endless mountain range, their original appearance covered by thick white clouds and fog. Not long after, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen reached the mountainside and arrived at a towering gate. There were many imperial guards guarding the gate. Only those who received an invitation could cross the gate and ascend to the mountaintop to watch the ceremony. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen took out their invitations and handed them to the imperial guard captain for inspection before they were allowed to enter. The two of them crossed the gate and continued to climb up the mountain along the solemn black divine path. The buildings above the mountainside were shrouded in white clouds and were faintly discernible. The two of them climbed the mountain in the clouds and enjoyed the scenery along the way. Chapter 547. When night fell, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yi climbed to the peak of the mountain. On the 10,000-meter high peak, the wind was biting cold, and the clouds were surging. Several magnificent palaces stood on the peak of the mountain, as if they had existed since ancient times, exuding a majestic and solemn aura. 3 palaces, 9 halls, and 18 courtyards formed the holy land of the human race, the imperial court. These palaces and courtyards were very vast and luxurious, not like the residences of humans, but more like the palaces of the gods in heaven. Ji Tianqing stood on the vast square in front of the palace, staring at the palace of heaven and earth across the square, and felt the sacred aura coming from it. He observed silently for a while, and could vaguely see that the palaces and courtyards in the imperial court were arranged in a special pattern and position. It contained the changes and mysteries of heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The entire imperial court sat on heaven-reaching peak, with the domineering aura of an emperor looking down on heaven and earth, and the majesty of a god looking down on all living things. Even in the dark night, the entire imperial court flashed with golden light, as dazzling as the sun. On the huge square in front of the palace, there were rows of imperial court guards in silver armor standing around. Many luxuriously dressed and dignified human experts and powerhouses were walking through the square in groups, toward the side palace of the Palace of Heaven and Earth. All the guests who had received the invitation and came to watch the ceremony were gathered in the side palace, and there were bursts of laughter and cheers. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yi followed the guests who had just climbed to the peak, and walked to the side palace at a moderate pace. When the two entered the side palace, they saw that there were hundreds of guests gathered in the brightly lit main hall. These dignified and powerful guests were all powerhouses or leaders of the human race's major forces. Everyone was holding wine cups, and gathered in groups of 3 to 5, either exchanging greetings or chatting enthusiastically. The long tables around the hall were piled high with fine wine and delicacies for the guests to take as they pleased. The air was filled with the fragrance of food, spirit fruits, and wine. To the powerhouses of the human race, it was an extremely honorable thing to be able to come to the imperial court to watch the ceremony. Not only would they be able to broaden their horizons, but they would also be able to interact and get to know many other experts of the same path. Therefore, many of the guests cherished this rare opportunity and went around chatting with others. When Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichen walked into the main hall, many guests noticed them and turned their heads to look at them in surprise. It wasn't strange that a large number of Sky Origin stage cultivators had gathered in the imperial court tonight. However, it was rare to see two Sky Origin stage cultivators as young as them. Moreover, both of them had dignified appearances, and their auras were noble and dignified. With a single glance, one could tell that they were genius experts from top forces. Instantly, many people guessed their identities. Their expressions changed slightly, revealing looks of awe and envy. An Imperial Guard captain in golden armor quickly walked in front of the two of them. The guard captain bowed to the two of them and asked respectfully, "May I ask if the two of you are from the Imperial residence?" "That's right." "Yes." Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichong both nodded in acknowledgement. The guard captain hurriedly pointed to the stairs on the left side of the main hall and said respectfully, "His Majesty the Emperor has instructed to invite the two princes to rest on the second floor." Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichong passed through the spacious main hall and walked towards the stairs. Many people in the main hall saw this scene and looked at the two of them with complicated eyes and expressions. They began to discuss in low voices. "The guests who are qualified to go to the second floor seem to be the princes of the imperial residence, right?" "I guessed right. Those two are indeed the princes. No wonder their auras are so extraordinary. More than a dozen princes went upstairs earlier. Now that two more have come, almost all the princes of the human race are here, right? To be able to see so many princes in this trip to the imperial court to watch the ceremony, this trip is really worth it." Many human powerhouses looked at Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichong with eyes full of envy and admiration. Their voices were also somewhat excited and emotional. After a while, Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichong went up to the second floor and entered a brightly lit but quiet and elegant living room. This living room was much smaller than the main hall on the first floor, but the decorations were more exquisite and luxurious. Obviously, it was used to entertain truly important guests. In the middle of the main hall, there was a huge table that was 20 meters long and more than 3 meters wide. On top of it were delicacies and fine wine. More than a dozen human princes were gathered in groups of 3 to 5. They held wine glasses in their hands and whispered to each other about something. Unlike the guests in the main hall on the first floor, these princes were arrogant, confident, and reserved. Even if they were gathered together with people who were familiar with each other, they would not talk loudly or laugh. The prince's words and actions were full of noble demeanor. When Ji Tianqing and Ling Yichong entered the living room, more than a dozen princes turned their heads to look at the two of them. Some of the princes who knew them nodded slightly to greet the two of them. As for the princes who were not familiar with them, they glanced at the two of them indifferently before looking away and no longer paying attention to them. Ji Tianqing did not care about the prince's gazes. He picked up a glass of spirit wine from the table and walked to the window. Ling Yichong followed him. The two of them stood by the window with wine glasses in their hands. They enjoyed the cool night breeze and admired the night view outside the window while talking to each other softly. At this moment, Ji Tianqing saw that two princes were already standing by the two windows not far away. The two of them did not belong to the same group. While they were drinking alone, they were also silently looking at the night sky and sea of clouds outside the window. Ji Tianqing took a closer look and realized that the two princes were not humans. The prince on the left was from the demon clan. She was a princess with a slim figure and a seductive temperament. The prince on the right was from the water clan. He was a young man who wore a purple robe and was as tall and sturdy as an iron tower. This person's face was resolute and powerful, and he had a valiant temperament. A golden dragon horn protruded from his forehead, and his exposed skin was also covered in fine scales. Ji Tianqing was not unfamiliar with the two princes. He still had some impressions of them. He knew that the seductive princess of the demon clan was called Fox Princess. She was the third princess of the monarch residence. The burly water prince with a horn on his forehead was the first prince of the monarch residence, Tai Yi. When Ji Tianqing took the risk to sneak into the monarch residence, he happened to see Divine Master Black Feather and many other princes having a meeting. During the meeting, both Fox Princess and Tai Yi spoke up. They had different opinions and argued for a while. At this moment, Ling Yichong saw that he was secretly sizing up Fox Princess and Tai Yi. He used his spiritual sense to explain, Junior Martial Brother Ji, these two princes are Fox Princess of the Demon Clan and Tai Yi of the Water Clan. The Emperor's concubine selection has attracted the attention of all races in the world. Not only have the princes of the Human Clan been invited, but the Demon Clan and the Water Clan will also send a prince as a representative to attend the ceremony. Chapter 548. Ji Tianqing had just entered the imperial residence not long ago, so there were very few princes he knew. Of course, Ling Yichen knew this, so he took the opportunity to quietly introduce him to the princes in the living room. The two of them did not show it on the surface as they held their wine cups and tasted the fine wine in silence. However, in reality, Ling Yichen was using his spiritual sense to continuously introduce them to Ji Tianqing. The prince in the white robe with the golden jade belt is called Lu Ziyuan. He's ranked 42nd in the residence. Junior apprentice Brother Ji, the muscular young man in the black robe with silver stripes is called Lu Zikang. He's ranked 37th in the imperial residence. And the one in the green robe who's surrounded by the princes is called Duanmu Yulong. He's the legitimate son of the Duanmu family and ranked 9th in the imperial residence. As for the one with the folding fan, Murong Lingfeng, who's so beautiful that he doesn't look like a man, I don't think I need to introduce him, right? After a short few minutes, Ling Yichen introduced the princes in the living room to Ji Tianqing one by one. Ji Tianqing listened quietly and silently memorized the names. When he heard the name Duanmu Yulong, he frowned and took a deep look at Duanmu Yulong. However, Duanmu Yulong was surrounded by the princes. He was chatting and laughing with the princes as if he was passing judgment on the world. He ignored Ji Tianqing as if he was not interested in even looking at him. Murong Lingfeng was also surrounded by the princes of the human race. He was like the moon surrounded by the stars and was clearly the leader of the princes. However, while he was talking and laughing with extraordinary confidence, he would always inadvertently glance at Ji Tianqing with a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. Soon, it was late at night. Most of the princes in the living room had stopped chatting and laughing. They were either drinking silently or finding a place to sit down and rest. Ling Yichen used the excuse that he was a little sleepy as an excuse to bid farewell to Ji Tianqing and left the living room. Ji Tianqing stood alone by the window and calmly looked at the night sky outside the window, admiring the changing of the stars and the churning of the sea of clouds. At this moment, a clear voice came from behind him. Junior Brother Ji, how have you been? Ji Tianqing turned his head to look and saw Murong Lingfeng holding a white jade wine cup, walking over with a smile on his face. Today, Murong Lingfeng was wearing a white robe embroidered with dragons and phoenixes, as well as clouds. His hair was tied up in a high bun, and he wore a jade crown. His left hand held a green jade folding fan. She was even more beautiful than before, and there was a charming smile on her face that made people not dare to look at her directly. Ji Tianqing calmly nodded and said with an indifferent expression, "Everything is fine, Brother Murong need not worry." Although his attitude was cold, Murong Lingfeng didn't mind at all. He smiled and walked to his side, chatting with him in a concerned tone. Ji Tianqing smiled coldly in his heart. He knew that this Murong Lingfeng had not given up and still wanted to strike up a conversation. However, he remained calm and collected on the surface as he tasted the spirit wine with an indifferent attitude, occasionally replying with a few words. In the corner of the living room not far away, the three princes clustered around Duanmu Yulong and were discussing something in low voices. Duanmu Yulong had a thoughtful expression, shaking his head or nodding from time to time, as if he was thinking about something. However, in reality, he was secretly paying attention to Ji Tianqing and Murong Lingfeng who were by the window. Seeing Murong Lingfeng take the initiative to express goodwill to Ji Tianqing, looking like they were chatting happily, Duanmu Yulong's eyes flashed with a mocking sneer as he thought to himself. Murong Lingfeng, this coquettish thing, actually still hasn't given up and still wants to rope in Ji Tianqing. He doesn't know that the Lord has already given me a secret order to get rid of Ji Tianqing as soon as possible. It seems that the Lord still thinks highly of me. Thinking of this, Duanmu Yulong was somewhat pleased with himself. When he looked at Ji Tianqing again, his eyes became somewhat cold. Damn Ji Tianqing, you actually came to the imperial court alive. Yesterday, you brat, you were lucky enough to escape a calamity, but you also caused me to lose a capable subordinate. However, after you leave the imperial court, I won't let you return to the imperial court alive. By the window, Murong Lingfeng and Ji Tianqing chatted for a long time. He found a few excuses to rope in Ji Tianqing. However, Ji Tianqing was not moved at all. His attitude toward Murong Lingfeng was very cold and indifferent. Murong Lingfeng cursed in his heart, but he could only give up for now. He smiled and said goodbye before leaving with his wine cup. After that, no one disturbed Ji Tianqing anymore. He had been standing by the window, staring at the night sky outside, thinking about something in silence. Before he knew it, a night had passed. The sky outside the window was bright, and a red glow appeared in the depths of the sea of clouds. A new day had arrived. Today was the day that the emperor would choose his heavenly consort. At this moment, many thearchs left the living room one after another. They walked in groups of 2 or 3 as they rushed to the Apocalypse Tower. Ling Yi, who had disappeared for half the night, appeared next to Ji Tianqing again. The two of them left the living room together and followed the crowd to the Apocalypse Tower. The Apocalypse Tower was located in the depths of the Imperial Court, behind the Palace of Heaven and Earth and the Palace of Heaven and Earth. It was a majestic golden pagoda that was 1,000 meters tall. It stood on the empty ground near the cliff. Ji Tianqing and Ling Yi left the side hall. They followed the main road and passed through 2 courtyards and palaces before finally arriving at the Apocalypse Tower. Under the sacred and majestic Apocalypse Tower, there were more than 100 imperial court guards guarding the empty ground. The doors of the Apocalypse Tower were already open. Many guests entered the pagoda excitedly and expectantly. Ji Tianqing followed the guests and the thearchs into the Apocalypse Tower. They followed the spiral staircase and climbed to the top of the pagoda. While climbing the pagoda, Ling Yi didn't forget to introduce the pagoda to Ji Tianqing. This Apocalypse Tower has 9 floors and is 999 meters tall. It's one of the most important buildings in the Imperial Court. Whenever the Imperial Court wants to hold a grand ceremony, it will be held at the Apocalypse Tower. It will be reported to the heavens and announced to the world. Only then will it appear sacred and solemn. 15 minutes later, the two of them reached the top of the Apocalypse Tower and arrived at the vast altar at the top. This flat, circular altar had a radius of 500 meters and could accommodate thousands of people to observe or hold ceremonies on the platform. There was a 2-meter-tall fence around the altar. It was made of heavenly star white jade and had lifelike patterns carved on it. It also contained a majestic array formation energy. In the center of the altar was a 100-meter-tall trapezoidal altar. It was made of thousands of pieces of stellar true gold and hundreds of gems. This extraordinary altar that contained a powerful and mysterious power was the Apocalypse Sacred Altar. Legend had it that the human Arch who controlled the 9 cauldrons could use the power of the Apocalypse Sacred Altar to reach the will of the heavens and win the hearts of the people. It could receive the will of the heavens and bring blessings to billions of people. Ji Tianqing stood on the vast altar like the other guests. He looked at the Apocalypse Sacred Altar with a solemn expression. He couldn't help but feel respect for it. Chapter 549. Not long after, the sun rose. Below the Apocalypse Tower was a sea of white clouds. Half of the bright red sun was peeking out. The morning sun shone a red light that spread for billions of miles, spreading across the boundless sea of clouds. The boundless sea of clouds was suddenly filled with multicolored light. It was as mesmerizing as a fairyland. Many of the guests exclaimed in admiration at this beautiful scenery, revealing excited expressions. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, was touched. He felt that the world was vast and boundless, but humans were tiny and weak. There are billions of mountains and rivers in the world. There are countless beautiful sights, but humans are limited. It is lucky to be able to appreciate them. I wonder when I can reach the legendary realm where I can see the rising sun of the East Sea in the morning and the setting sun of the West Wilderness in the evening. I can travel between the north and south in the morning and travel between the heavens and the earth. Very quickly, 2 hours passed. The beautiful scenery of the rising sun was over. Many guests finally regained their senses. At this moment, a few imperial court officials led groups of imperial court guards and maidservants up the Apocalypse Tower. Hundreds of guards and maidservants stood around the Apocalypse altar. They looked sincere and solemn. Everyone knew that the auspicious time was approaching. The Emperor's concubine selection ceremony was about to begin. At this moment, a white-haired elder in a white robe and holding a golden horsetail whisk flew over from the sea of clouds. The elder's robe fluttered in the wind. He stepped on the clouds as if he was walking on flat ground. Everyone on the altar looked at him one after another. When they saw his sage-like and otherworldly appearance and temperament, they were all stunned. Many people looked at him with respect. They only thought that he was an old immortal who had descended from the heavens. Swoosh! The white-robed elder held the horsetail whisk and landed on the Apocalypse altar. He was spotlessly clean, and his aura was deep and vast. It was as if he was connected to the heavens and the earth. No one could see through him. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. The ceremonial officials, guards, and maids around the altar all bowed and paid their respects. They shouted, "Greetings, Your Majesty Imperial Preceptor." More than 100 guests and thearchs finally realized that the white-robed elder was the imperial tutor of the human imperial court. Immediately, the guests and the emperor's sons bowed respectfully. The imperial tutor looked at the crowd indifferently and gestured for them to rise. Then, he waved the golden horsetail whisk in his hand and used a secret technique to shoot out rays of 5-colored spiritual light into the open heaven's sacred altar. After the opening heaven altar lit up with a hazy brilliance and released a mysterious and vast invisible power, Yi Qingyu's eyes lit up. The imperial tutor solemnly bowed to the sky and said in a booming voice, "Today is the golden hour. In accordance with the will of the heavens, the Son of Heaven is choosing his heavenly concubine. This is a blessing for the imperial court, a grand ceremony for our race, and a sacred ceremony for billions of human beings. Therefore, I opened the holy altar and reported it to the heavens, to the people." The imperial tutor gave a solemn speech, reporting to the heavens the significance of today's grand ceremony, praying for the heavens to bear witness and bless. The ceremonial officials below the altar, as well as the hundreds of guards and maids, all knelt down on one knee and bowed to the heavens in a pious posture. The guests and the princes all felt a formless energy and connection descending from the sky onto the opening heaven's sacred altar. This caused Ji Tianqing to be secretly shocked and somewhat puzzled. He had always thought that the heavens were just a title that didn't exist and could only be used to entrust the people's beautiful wishes. However, at this moment, he could deeply feel that the legendary heavens really did exist. There seemed to be a pair of invisible eyes in the sky staring at the open heaven tower and silently injecting an invisible and mysterious power. 15 minutes later, the imperial tutor finally finished the open heaven ceremony and opened the holy altar. Then, the imperial tutor loudly announced that the 3 heavenly concubine candidates were invited to come on stage and be judged by the heavens and the people. Ji Tianqing, like the other guests, turned to look at the exit at the edge of the open heaven altar. As a melodious string and woodwind music sounded, a group of maids escorted a beautiful woman to the open heaven altar and walked lightly toward it. That beautiful and elegant woman was wearing a gorgeous long dress that reached the ground and a jade phoenix crown that was inlaid with gold and embedded with jade and gems. She was dressed very elegantly. She lowered her head slightly, and a layer of golden beads dangled from the jade phoenix crown, faintly hiding her beautiful face. However, the more people couldn't see her face, the more they felt that she was beautiful and alluring. After this beautiful woman stepped onto the open heaven altar, the imperial tutor loudly announced, "The first heavenly concubine candidate is Lan Huixin. She is a beauty from the long heaven region," the guests in the hall whispered to each other. Then, another group of maids escorted the second beautiful woman to the open heaven altar. This beautiful woman was different from Lan Huixin. She didn't wear a graceful and luxurious dress, nor did she wear exquisite makeup. She was wearing a simple green robe and long skirt. She did not wear any makeup, nor did she wear any jewelry. However, she had an innate demure temperament, like an orchid in an empty valley, noble and elegant. She calmly stepped onto the open heaven altar and stood in the middle of the hall. She didn't look around, and only looked at the sea of clouds indifferently, quietly waiting. The imperial tutor loudly announced, "The second heavenly concubine candidate is Insuan. She is a beauty from the Yong'an region." The guests in the surroundings once again burst into discussion. Some curiously looked at Insuan, while others were amazed and praised. Murong Lingfeng, who was surrounded by several princes, stared at Insuan's beautiful figure the moment she appeared. He couldn't move his eyes away. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he gazed at Insuan. His eyes were filled with longing and yearning. He silently called out in his heart, hoping that Insuan would turn her head and look at him. Even if it was just a look, it would make him feel at ease. However, Insuan stood quietly and stared at the sea of clouds. She didn't look at anyone at all. Then, the third beautiful woman appeared on the open heaven altar. This beautiful woman wore a white long dress. Her figure was tall and perfect, and her face was beautiful. She was like the most perfect masterpiece of the Creator. However, her eyes were as indifferent as autumn water, and her temperament was as cold as frost. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens, otherworldly. She just stood on the open heaven altar and didn't do anything. She didn't even need to show any expression, but her invisible aura suppressed Insuan and Lan Huixin beside her. Without a doubt, this person was Yunyao. Many of the guests present had heard of Yunyao's name. They knew that she was the first daughter of the Cloud Spirit Palace, and now the princess of the imperial residence. After the imperial tutor introduced her, many of the guests and princes on the open heaven altar revealed looks of amazement and admiration. They all began to discuss. The 3 heavenly consort candidates were all present. Thus, the imperial tutor announced that the emperor would step onto the open heaven altar and choose his heavenly consort in front of everyone. Everyone turned their heads to look at the exit. They saw Long Yunxiao, who wore a golden robe and a square golden crown of dragons and phoenixes on his head, walk up the open heaven altar with majestic steps. At that moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Long Yunxiao. They looked at him with complicated expressions. Ever since Long Yunxiao's battle with Ji Tianqing, he hadn't appeared in public for a long time. There hadn't been any news about him either. It was rumored that his injuries were too severe and that he had been in seclusion to heal. However, at this moment, everyone saw that he was in high spirits. His aura was strong, and he didn't look like he was injured. Of course, the guests and princes were more concerned about who Long Yunxiao would choose as his heavenly consort. Chapter 550. The 3 heavenly consort candidates stood quietly on the holy altar and waited. When Long Yunxiao stepped onto the holy altar, Lan Huixin and Insuan both looked up at him. Lan Huixin pretended to be dignified, but her eyes were filled with expectation and adoration as she looked around. Insuan's gaze towards Long Yunxiao contained a trace of sincere concern, as well as her usual adoration. Only Yunya did not look up at Long Yunxiao. It was as if she did not care about everything around her. With such a cold and aloof demeanor, she was truly like an otherworldly fairy. Long Yunxiao stood on the holy altar and bowed to the heavens. Then, he bowed to the imperial tutor. Finally, he looked at the 3 heavenly consort candidates. His expression was as cold as ice. He did not look happy about choosing a heavenly consort at all. Instead, he exuded a cold aura. Most of the guests were not familiar with him, so they could not see anything unusual about him. They only felt that this was the majestic aura that the emperor should have. However, the 3 heavenly consort candidates, Ji Tianqing, and the other princes could feel that something was wrong with Long Yunxiao. After a moment of silence, Long Yunxiao looked at the first beauty, Lan Huixin, under everyone's gaze. Lan Huixin lowered her head shyly when he looked at her. She did not dare to look him in the eye. However, her heart was filled with joy and excitement. Her heartbeat also sped up. The emperor looked at me first. It seems like he wants to talk to me. Could it be that the emperor wants to choose me as the heavenly consort? Thinking of this, Lan Huixin was overjoyed, and her body trembled with excitement. However, after waiting for a while, she did not hear the emperor announce his decision. She looked up in confusion. Long Yunxiao looked at her expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Miss Lan, you're a pure and kind girl." Long Yunxiao's voice was not loud, but it spread throughout the apocalyptic pagoda. Everyone heard it clearly. Many guests and princes looked at Long Yunxiao with bated breaths. They wondered if Long Yunxiao was going to choose Lan Huixin as his heavenly consort. Just as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Long Yunxiao continued, "However, I'm not fated to be with you. I hope you can find the right person soon." After saying that, Long Yunxiao retracted his gaze and no longer looked at Lan Huixin. From beginning to end, his eyes were calm and indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. Lan Huixin was immediately dumbfounded. She stood stiffly on the stage, not knowing what to do for a moment. Just a moment ago, she was filled with joy and excitement. She thought that she was going to be favored by the emperor and become a heavenly concubine. But at this moment, the Son of Heaven announced the result in a cold tone, causing her to fall from the clouds to hell. Lan Huixin was filled with grievances and heartbreak. She almost couldn't hold back her tears. However, this was the Apocalypse Pagoda. In front of so many powerful cultivators, how could she not care about her reputation? She could only suppress her grief and press her lips together, allowing the tears in her eyes to fall silently. At this moment, Long Yunxiao walked in front of Yun Yao and looked at Yun Yao with a complicated expression. He didn't open his mouth to speak, but his eyes, which were as deep as the starry sky and as complex as ripples on the surface of water, had already revealed everything. There was longing, gentleness, and reluctance. Yun Yao also looked at him calmly. She did not speak, and her expression did not change. The two of them looked at each other but remained silent. Many guests and thearchs on the stage started whispering to each other. "I've heard that the Son of Heaven is infatuated with Yun Yao and is determined to marry Yun Yao as his heavenly concubine." "I've heard about it too. This news is not a secret. All the major forces in Middle Ground know about it. Look at how affectionate they are looking at each other. It looks like there won't be any suspense today. The Son of Heaven is definitely going to choose Yun Yao as his heavenly concubine." "That's right. Among the three beauties, Yun Yao is the most outstanding one. She is not only the Yun family's daughter but also the Thearcha's daughter. Only she is worthy of the Son of Heaven. This is a bit strange. If the Son of Heaven is going to choose Yun Yao as his heavenly concubine, shouldn't he be filled with tenderness and happiness? Why does he look so disheartened?" Everyone was secretly guessing, but they could not figure out Long Yunxiao's thoughts and decision. On the altar, Long Yunxiao did not speak. Instead, he secretly said to Yun Yao with his spiritual sense, "Yao Yao. Although I was destined to withdraw and give up from the moment I was defeated by Ji Tianqing's sword, after so many days, when I face you and want to tell you the result personally, I still feel like my heart is being twisted by a knife. It's hard for me to give up." Yun Yao looked at him calmly and asked with her spiritual sense, "So, you're going to go back on your word?" Long Yunxiao shook his head slightly and said solemnly, "No, as the Son of Heaven and the future the Arch, how can I go back on my word? Although only the three of us know about the agreement between Ji Tianqing and me. With my identity and the power of the imperial court, I can get rid of Ji Tianqing and force you to be my heavenly concubine. The world will not know about the twists and turns. But I can't do such a despicable thing. I can't face my conscience, and I can't face you." Hearing this, Yun Yao already knew his choice. She said sincerely, "Long Yunxiao, thank you. Letting go of the obsession in your heart is not only letting go of Tianqing and me, but also redeeming yourself." Long Yunxiao was silent for a moment. Then, he continued, "That's right. Only by letting go of the obsession can you let go of yourself. Love is not selfish possession, but sincere dedication. Maybe he loves you more than I do, or maybe he's the one arranged by the heavens for you. However, although I've withdrawn and given up, I still see you as my best friend. If that brat Ji Tianqing dares to wrong you, I won't be polite to him. After the sound transmission, Long Yunxiao expressionlessly announced in front of everyone, Yunyao is not my choice. When the people on the altar heard this, they immediately went into an uproar. Many people were astonished, not daring to believe this was true. At this time, Long Yunxiao had already walked in front of Ansuan. Lan Huixin and Yunyao had both been eliminated. The result was obvious. Ansuan's heart was filled with joy and happiness. Tears welled up in her eyes. She never thought that she would receive such a huge surprise when she had already given up hope. Could it be that the emperor has finally seen my feelings and sincerity and has been moved by me? Ansuan looked up at Long Yunxiao and gazed deeply into his eyes. However, what she saw was a pair of cold and emotionless eyes. While she was still in a daze, she heard Long Yunxiao say indifferently, Suan, thank you for staying by my side and taking care of my injuries. I know that you've always wanted to become a heavenly consort. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish and choose you as my heavenly consort. After saying this, Long Yunxiao turned around and left expressionlessly. The result was decided. The guards of honor immediately played a celebratory song. Countless guests and princes also clapped and cheered. The Apocalypse Pagoda was filled with jubilation. Countless people smiled and discussed enthusiastically. Ansuan, who should have been the happiest and the most excited, could not bring herself to be happy at all. She stood stiffly on the spot, looking at Long Yunxiao's back with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with sorrow, and her heart was throbbing with pain. She had finally become a heavenly consort. She had fulfilled her long-cherished wish and obtained the result she wanted. However, what she wanted was definitely not this process. Compared to the position of heavenly consort, what she wanted the most was the emperor's heart. However, the result was like this. She could not refuse. She could only accept it. However, it was like a thorn in her heart. Chapter 551. Long Yunxiao stood expressionlessly on the open heaven altar, waiting for the imperial tutor to finish the rest of the ceremony. Ansuan looked at him with a complicated expression. Her heart was filled with bitterness and hesitation. Lan Huixin's eyes were filled with tears. She was sad that she had failed, but she was also very envious and jealous of Ansuan. Only Yunyao was calm. She was neither sad nor happy. In the crowd below the holy altar, Murong Lingfeng, who had been anxiously waiting, was now completely dumbfounded. He thought that the emperor would choose Yunyao as his heavenly consort. After all, the emperor had pursued Yunyao for many years. He was infatuated with Yunyao and had been secretly supporting the Yun family. No matter what, the emperor would choose Yunyao as his heavenly consort. This was a matter of course. Murong Lingfeng was still planning in his heart. Once the emperor's consort selection was over, he could openly pursue Ansuan. At that time, he would definitely use all of his abilities and all kinds of methods to make Ansuan stay in the central state, and then gradually capture her heart. However, the emperor chose Ansuan as his heavenly consort. To Murong Lingfeng, this was simply a bolt out of the blue, an enormous blow. After he regained his senses, his face twisted in anger. His eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. Long Yun Xiao. You damn bastard. How dare you steal my Suan in front of everyone? So what if you're the emperor? One day, I will make you lose all standing and reputation and die without a burial ground to avenge today's grudge. Murong Lingfeng clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He roared in his heart. The pain of having his beloved taken away was like a sharp knife stabbing into his heart. It was unforgettable. The seed of hatred was buried deep in his heart. It was growing rapidly. However, this was the open heaven pagoda. The imperial tutor and many powerful cultivators were present. Murong Lingfeng did not dare to act up. He could only endure the humiliation and hide the hatred in his heart. Even if his teeth were broken, he had to swallow it down. A moment later, the hatred and murderous intent in his eyes disappeared. His eyes became cold and indifferent, and even a little empty and lifeless. After an unknown period of time, the concubine selection ceremony was finally completed. The emperor left the Apocalypse Pagoda with the new heavenly consort, and Suan, under everyone's gaze. Yin Yao and Lan Huixin also walked down the open heaven altar and left the top of the tower. The imperial tutor announced the end of the imperial concubine selection ceremony and told everyone that the imperial concubine and the imperial concubine would be officially married in 3 months. At that time, the imperial court would hold the conferring ceremony of the heavenly concubine and would invite all the guests to attend the ceremony again. Many guests silently noted down the time, thinking that the ceremony was over, and were about to leave. But at this moment, the imperial tutor announced another piece of news. Today, all the powerful beings of my race have gathered at the Apocalypse Pagoda. I have a second announcement to make. And this solemn and sacred matter concerns the safety and future of billions of people in the heavenly stellar region. More than 100 guests on the altar immediately stopped in their tracks. They looked at the imperial preceptor with sparkling eyes, their faces full of anticipation. Most of these guests were powerful beings and rulers of the human race. Among them were the overlords of the 8 southern regions, the heads of the ancient families, the city lords of the various cities in Middle Ground, and the leaders of many first-rate forces. Everyone could feel that the imperial tutor's attitude was solemn and serious. The news that he was about to announce would definitely be shocking. Indeed, the imperial tutor said solemnly, as everyone knows, the 8 regions of my race have the position of territorial lord. The 8 territorial lords manors respectively rule the 8 southern regions. They lead the various martial Dao sects and protect billions of people and hundreds of kingdoms. For the past 1,000 years, the southern regions have been peaceful and stable. The people have been living in peace and contentment, only the heavenly stellar region has never had a territorial lord. It is ruled and protected by the ancient realm of the stellar region. However, the heavenly stellar region is located in the south and is too far away from the imperial court. Even if the imperial court wants to protect it, it is too far away. Recently, there have been drastic changes in the ancient realm of the stellar region. We are unable to rule the heavenly stellar region and protect the people of the 10 nations. Many of the guests were powerhouses and superiors of the human race. Which one of them was not quick-witted and intelligent? Hearing the imperial tutor's words, everyone understood what he meant and guessed what he was about to announce. Suddenly, everyone was shocked and stared at him with their eyes wide open. The imperial tutor paused for a moment and looked around the room with a dignified gaze. He said slowly in a solemn tone, in order to protect the peace of the heavenly stellar region and protect billions of people, the imperial court has decided to select a young powerhouse with both integrity and talent to be the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. In the next month, all the princes of my race who have reached the heavenly origin realm can register with the imperial court. In a month, the imperial court will select the candidates. The princes and the young powerhouses will compete for the position of the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. When the imperial tutor's voice spread throughout the room, many of the guests were full of anticipation. The eyes of the princes were shining brightly. Their blood was boiling and their hearts were beating faster. Everyone secretly made up their minds to participate in this competition and work hard to become the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. If they could control the heavenly stellar region, they could control hundreds of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers and lead the people of the 10 nations. One of the 9 territorial lords of the human race. How noble and honorable was that? Thinking of this, many of the princes secretly clenched their fists and were eager to try. In particular, Duanmu Yulong and Murong Lingfeng were filled with excitement and impatience. Both of them knew very well that if they could become the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region, they would have more power and influence. They would strengthen their own families and completely suppress the other 2 families. Even Ji Tianqing's heart was full of desire and anticipation. Although he was not greedy for power, he came from the heavenly stellar region. His family, homeland, and sect were there. He also wanted to compete for the position of the territorial lord and control the heavenly stellar region in his own hands. Only then could he better protect his family, friends, and sect. If someone else became the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region and led the various sects and the 10 nations, who knew what the situation would be like? When the imperial tutor saw everyone's anticipation and enthusiasm, he could not help but reveal a look of satisfaction. He gave a few more speeches to end the ceremony. Then, he announced the end of the ceremony. After saying that, he flew into the sea of clouds in a flash and left with the wind. The ceremonial officer, hundreds of guards, and maids on the altar hurriedly bowed and saluted. Many guests also bowed and saluted, shouting, "Respectfully send off your highness imperial preceptor." After the imperial tutor left, the guests and princes on the altar left the top of the pagoda one after another. After they walked down the Apocalypse Pagoda, they were still discussing enthusiastically in groups. Some were discussing Ansuan becoming the heavenly consort, while others were discussing the selection of the territorial lord of the heavenly stellar region. In short, the two things that happened today shocked the 9 regions of the south and affected the entire human race. Please recommend me. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.